What's good? Yeah, what's good?
Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and we are live at somethingtowrestle.com trying not to get canceled with the hostess with the mostest. Wait, he's not a hostess, but he's probably had some of their snack cakes. Ladies and gentlemen, John Bradshaw Layfield. John,
I've had some of the hostesses. I'm sorry, that's right. We're trying not to get canceled. Sorry.
Well, we're excited to be here with you, man, on the heels of a really big weekend. WWE did more media heading into Wrestlepalooza than they have for any other event this year, maybe second only to WrestleMania, but they certainly presented it as something that was bigger than the Royal Rumble and bigger than SummerSlam. The opening video sort of set the tone. WWE tells stories, and now they're telling those stories on ESPN. It was a big-time celebration for longtime wrestling fans, and I don't know what you had a chance to check out, but first we should just remind everybody it's a $300 million a year deal for WWE. Nick Khan continues to master these negotiations like nothing we've ever seen in wrestling. What'd you think of the execution of the first event on ESPN, John?
Yeah, I saw some of the negative stuff out there. I think, people love to be negative and then tend to reviews. We had Bram Stoker's grandson on Stories of Briscoe and Bradshaw, the guy who wrote Dracula. Dracula is the second most sold book behind the Bible, and reviews when it came out were horrible. So I think reviewers have always been negative. And I just think that's what people, you sound smart when you're negative. You don't sound smart when you're positive. That was great. I mean, it wasn't great. What about 1967? What about 1983? What about 1994? So I think that's a part of it. I think it's a terrific start for WWE. I think it's going to be huge. These guys, I watch ESPN all the time, or I got it on one of my TVs all the time. These guys are getting promotion. It's unbelievable the amount of promotion that they're getting. This is huge for WWE.
I thought the same. I do think, if anything, I did see some of the same reviews you did where folks were maybe a little let down. And I can't help but wonder if those were just the hardcore fans, John, because it did feel like, much like the first Saturday night's main event that we enjoyed last year, this was really supposed to serve as more of an introduction to a new audience, people who haven't normally been watching WWE. We had to establish, hey, who are the players? Who are their characters? What are their stories? What is WWE all about in 2025? I think that show was more for new fans as opposed to the hardcores. And maybe that's what was disappointing a little bit. What do you say?
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes I think they conflate that they're disappointed with their guy didn't win. Also. Okay. And so I think that's part of it as well. I think they wanted John Cena a feel-good moment, and it doesn't happen. If you're doing this for new fans, Brock's going to apparently be around a while, and he is the beast, and you're going to go forward with him. I have no idea what their plans are. But I think the business decision is to put the guy over that's going to be staying there. And John is a guy that, I think you could have guessed this. John has always been a very giving guy, maybe too much sometimes. I don't think so in this case, but he's always been that guy.
Yeah, I think there's a report out there that came out today, and who knows what's true or what not true, but we saw something that said that until the morning of Wrestlepalooza, internally, the creative plans were that John Cena was going over. I talked about that with Jeff Jarrett, and he says, hey, maybe the reason they did finish the way they did is because Brock Lesnar may actually be John Cena's last match. It's been a series of dominant performances by Brock Lesnar. And if you really do want to deliver the biggest bang for your buck, if you will, on John Cena's last appearance and his last story, let him finally overcome Brock Lesnar. I could get behind that from a storytelling.
I don't know where they're going, but I think that would be awesome if it was. I mean, the match that he had in SummerSlam years ago, where he just got suplexed time after time after time. This match, to finally climb that mountain in the last match of his career, I think would be huge. And if that's where they're going, I think it's terrific storytelling.
Yeah, I enjoyed the match. I know that it's maybe not exactly what everybody expected, but I kind of did. It feels weird that you would have Brock come back knowing that he's going to stick around into next year, and you're going to have him lose his first match back. I don't know. It made sense to me that he would lay waste to John Cena. I thought it was a fun match. It was exactly what I expected. But I know that some people were expecting some more surprises or some more twists or some more turns. One of the biggest surprises we saw is that Stephanie McMahon has already been announced as going into the Hall of Fame. Normally we start seeing some of those announcements roll out in late January. This time we saw it in mid-September. Were you surprised that they used this new platform to announce Stephanie? First of all, shout out to her. Well-deserved, grateful that she's got the opportunity to go in. It's super cool, but man, it's awfully early, John.
Yeah, and she has been terrific, by the way, in her whole career. And I agree with you, completely well-deserved. I think, she's got the podcast, I think, it's promoted on ESPN. Maybe that has a lot to do with it because there's more ESPN deals with her involved. And it's because of business that they're doing going forward that it helps to get this out there now with her. And or maybe it's just they want to give something special to ESPN. So I get that it's early, but I think it was important to have something on there that was groundbreaking.
Well, and it also respectfully gave something for the Undertaker to do. You probably do want to show him off to some of your new fans who are going to be checking in, because that show, in my opinion, was not just for the hardcores. This is for casual fans, maybe lapsed fans, people who haven't checked out WWE in a long time. Hey, why not check it out, especially if you have one of those different services? I wound up subscribing to a new bundle, John. I don't know what your experience was, but we talked last week how it may have confused some fans. When I went into my ESPN app, they gave me a QR code. I was able to pull that up, and they offered me a new bundle with Disney, Hulu, and ESPN for $29.99. I did that deal, and then I went back and unsubscribed to Hulu because I already had a standalone subscription for that. So my new out-of-pocket was only like $12 a month. It wound up being a pretty good deal. I'm happy with that investment. What was your experience like as far as securing the show? Did you have any trouble, or was
no, same thing? It was just following some prompts and following some leads, and you got everything saved in there, and who knows what all I'm subscribed to, but I'm subscribed to it, but it was not that hard. It was actually very, very easy to get subscribed to, and I'm glad I did. I like all those services, and I like everything that ESPN offers.
I do want to ask you, what if you had a chance to see some of the matches, were you surprised that they pulled the trigger on Stephanie? She's our new champ. I don't think a lot of people would have necessarily called that going in. If you were looking for a big, title change moment, there it was. What do you think of her upside and her ceiling in WWE, John?
She's incredibly popular, and her social media presence is awesome. And so I think it makes perfect sense. That's the direction we're headed, is people that can be brands, and she can be a brand, and she already is developing as a brand. So I think it's a terrific move to go ahead and let her go to the higher level, because she's already getting there, which I think is a sign to a lot of guys out there. You've got to do more than just wait on creative. You've got to create yourself on this social media. And, I get, rag on these guys so much for being on their phone, but there's a reason sometimes that you are, because of this social media.
You may remember this is an international star who had a lot of success down in Mexico. She was an international star who got a lot of attention. We briefly saw her make some appearances on the other channel. It came out that AEW actually offered her more money. WWE allegedly refused to match the offer, but she still went with WWE to live the dream. And as you see there's her dad sitting front row. This is the dream that she imagined, and this is the dream that she envisioned. So kudos to her for betting on herself and playing what we might call the long game. I guess my question to you is, John, do you think that this might be the first of many more international talent who are going to come in and have a big place in WWE? As a reminder, she beat Io Sky for the title, and not that long ago, having two international folks battling for the belt, not being someone who came through developmental and came through NXT, but someone who was really made their name somewhere else first. I think that's really cool. We've seen that evolution on the men's side, but is it time for the women now? And who do you expect? Is there anybody on your radar right now that you would expect to be next?
Yeah, I think it is time for the women. And, it's a very simple process. If somebody can get over somewhere, they probably can get over at a different place. And so you see these international stars, especially somebody like Stephanie Vaquer, she's gotten over incredibly well. Everywhere she's been champion everywhere she's been. She can carry it. Now, can she do it on the really big stage? That's the question. But it's kind of like college football. If somebody's a real stud in high school, probably they're going to be a stud in college. The problem that we've had a lot with the developmental, some of these guys, you don't even know if they can play the game. Now, some of them can, but it's really hard for these guys to come through developmental and go straight to the big stage, because you're learning on global television. That's really tough. It's a tough thing to do. These guys have it much harder than we had it when we were breaking in. And I'm talking about as far as the education that we had breaking in. Obviously, we spent a lot more miles on the road and working for a lot less money trying to make it there. But the educational process is so much easier when we did it, because we'd have 1,000 matches by the time we got here. Now they're looking around and seeing these people that are incredibly over, that have been champions in other places. And I think it's just natural to bring them in. And I think it's natural to get their following. Look at AJ Styles. I mean, he made a huge name for himself outside of WWE. Then he comes in, and the guy was this generation's Shawn Michaels. I think it's a very simple thing that they're doing, is finding terrific stars out there and giving them opportunity. And I think it's going to continue. And I think it's, the women trailed that, but they trailed creating their own division too. Everything's starting to catch up now.
I don't know if you saw, but I absolutely loved Becky Lynch's tweet. I couldn't help but think that, man, this is partly something that you would appreciate. We know that she came up on the short end of the stick in the mixed tag this past weekend. But one of the things that I loved about the tweet was where she sort of explained how. She wrote, "I recovered the unedited footage, which clearly shows that I was attacked by a rogue bee at the end of the match. I have not tapped out in over 6 years. And if it wasn't for the blatant bias of that crooked referee who so obviously saw that I was being ambushed by the vicious winged insect predator, I would have been declared the winner." A rogue bee. That's got to be near the top of the list now.
I love it. It was like CM Punk had something about Billy and Chuck or something. It was out there. It said they're the worst couple since Billy and Chuck. Somebody had that, or he retweeted or something. I love this stuff. I love when they use social media creatively. That's what it's for. If you're going to build a brand, use it as an extension of yourself and do something that creates more buzz. And that's what she's doing with it. I think it's fantastic.
There was a lot of discussion about match order the other night. Let's put your booking hat on. Would you have started with John Cena and Brock Lesnar, and would you have finished with Cody and Drew? A lot of people were saying AJ's return felt like a big deal. John Cena and Brock Lesnar felt like a big deal. I mean, this is a great problem to have when you have so many matches that could go on last.
Right.
But if it were up to you, would you have done anything differently, do you think?
I don't think so. They obviously thought it through, and you take a guess. Cody was all over ESPN. So him closing the show, I think makes perfect sense. Obviously Brock and Cena, their picture was on everything on ESPN. So, where do you put them? Do you put them first, put them last? I think putting them first when you're debuting something like this, I think is the right thing to do. I tell you, the bad spot is being on second. It's not being on last. If they're on first, you don't mind being on last, but you do mind being on second.
I do want to ask you about Jey Uso. He's probably the biggest news coming out of the show. We've heard that he's in concussion protocol. He swings a chair at the back of Braun Breaker. The chair ricochets back into his head. He's busted open the hard way, out cold, knocked for a loop. He's hurting for certain. I've never been through concussion protocol. If I'm honest with you, I don't even really know what that means. What do you think of this? And do you think that this could have been avoided, or is this just one of those, hey man, it's wrestling, shit happens?
Yeah, shit happens. There's not much you can do. You're swinging a chair. I mean, that thing it's not gimmick. People ask me, how do you swing a chair? When you get hit with it, you just close your eyes when it hits you and hope that you wake up. There's really not much to it. You're swinging a chair. You can gimmick some tables, you can gimmick some stuff. You have a chair the right way and all that stuff where he doesn't try to bust people open. You try to hit them with the flat if you're hitting them over the head, which they don't do anymore with the chair itself. Those things just happen. It's just I've never been through concussion protocol. We didn't have it, so I'm not sure what it is, but I'm glad they have it now.
Well, we're excited to talk and to hear really what you guys think. We want to know. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of Wrestlepalooza? The big news today, John, was ESPN gave a grade to the show. Now, that's interesting because ESPN is obviously the people who facilitated this deal and wrote the check for WWE. But one of their staff writers, a friend of the show, Andreas Hale, he did not absolutely love this show. He gave it a C. Now I know that Hale is a big time wrestling fan, so I think he probably falls into the category of myself and a lot of our listeners here today. We're hardcore fans. We consume as much WWE as we can. So I think that's important because I don't think that we were the audience for this show but Hale gave it a C. Now I bring this up to you because I'm curious if Vince were around, and I know he's not, how do you think he would have felt about coverage like this with a supposed partner in ESPN who's going to say the show was kind of meh? What would Vince's response to that be?
Mr. Hale will be looking for a new job.
Okay, that's what I imagined.
There's no doubt about it, and that's what should happen. Look, you're writing for a platform that you spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this product, and you're bashing the product. I just don't think that's well thought through. I don't think that's the place for it. Mr. Hale has a right to say whatever the heck he wants, and it's his prerogative. But when you're writing about the first show, and you're writing for it on the company that's paid hundreds of millions of dollars, and you undermine the very product that they're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for, because your opinion is that it wasn't a A-level show, it was a C-level show. It doesn't seem like that person has much job security. If Vince was there, he would be gone already.
Listen, wrestling creative is subjective. Jeff always says that on his podcast. I've learned to adopt that. But I saw some comparisons online that said, people who share your opinion of, man, I can't believe he would do that knowing that he works for ESPN. But at the same time, we routinely see people who have a voice and a platform on ESPN be negative about traditional sport. Hey, this guy sucked, that game sucked, this offense. They can be critical. Is that totally different because it's not traditional sport? And is it a slippery slope because we're covering something that is technically sports entertainment on a sports channel? Where do you draw the line, John?
I think the difference is you draw the line with what he's talking about. The show sucks. So if you had a game, an NFL game, or Ravens and the Chiefs or something like that, and you say, and it's a new league on ESPN, and the first game played, so boy, that game was that game was terrible. The whole thing sucked. And basically you're saying that the product that you got is not an A-level product. And I understand, this. You're saying that it could be better, but this is the debut product. I just don't think that's the time for it. I think you can argue about a lot of stuff, but somebody did. Cena was not as good, Brock was not as good, Drew was not as good, something like that. But when you say the whole show was just not what you thought it would be, and that's what's on the website of the company that's paying hundreds of millions of dollars for this product, I just don't think that looks good. I think it's not thought through. I think if I'm him, I find a way to make a creative report for that show, whether I believed it or not.
Well, something that we know you can believe is our friends at Stopbox. We're big proponents of this. I mean, let's be real. If you own a handgun for self-defense, your storage likely fits into one of two pretty frustrating categories. It's either locked away, meaning it's safe, but it's out of reach in case of an emergency, or it's unsecured, leaving it vulnerable to anyone. Well, Stopbox USA saw the problem and designed a groundbreaking solution, the Stopbox Pro. With the Stopbox Pro, you'll never have to choose between security and readiness again. Its ingenious push-button locking system gives you fast, reliable access when every second matters, without the hassle of keys or reliance on batteries. It's 100% mechanical, so it works every time, no power needed. And with Stopbox USA, you finally have both security and readiness. The Stopbox Pro's mechanical keyless system allows for fast and secure access without risking or fumbling for keys. And by the way, every second counts, and that's why you want to make sure that this is battery free. And that's what Stopbox Pro is. You'll never have to worry about your lock not working. Stopbox Pro is also TSA compliant and even made right here in the USA. And for a limited time, our listeners can get 15% off at Stopbox when you use the code STW at checkout. Head on over to stopboxusa.com and use the code STW for 15% off your entire order. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. We are live right now on YouTube. If you've got a question for John, keep them coming. AOTV Productions is with us here live, and he says, hey guys, Cody Rhodes said in an interview on ESPN that he believes Punk, or Rollins would take over for Triple H one day. What do you think, John?
I hadn't thought about that. Triple H is pretty young, and I don't know. He could be there quite a while, but yeah, I think all three of those guys could do a great job with it. I've told you many times, when you walk into a wrestler's meeting or go over a finish or going over an angle or storyline or something, there's always one guy that talks. You just have certain respect, and certain guy has the acumen that everybody cedes to him. These three guys are those guys, and I think they all did a wonderful job. They're all small guys. It's a tough job. I mean, it's really, and they all have the intelligence to do it. Triple H was trained by Vince for years to run the company, and the one difference was this is not a wrestling company. This is truly a business, an entertainment business. That was the difference between Vince and Crockett and Vince and Fritz and Vince and Vern and all these guys. He was putting together a business, and that's a big difference. And a lot of that comes training. I remember Michael Hayes, in my opinion, is a brilliant guy. He told me he sat down with Vince. Vince showed him how to book. He said it was like he had never booked before. Vince was so far ahead of him. So I mean, Triple H has a huge lead on these guys. But when it's what Vince did for Triple H could do for one of these guys. I think they all have the intelligence to do it.
I didn't see this, but AOTV Productions is saying that Ronda Rousey has criticized AJ's return match, saying it was awful and her match at Mania 34 was better and created more buzz. Do you think she's just bitter? Man, where does this coming from, John? Damn.
I don't know. I don't know why. I don't get it. She's one of the greatest MMA stars of all time. She did great in WWE. She sold a ton of whatever you call them at the time. It was not pay-per-views. We were about streaming or whatever you do then. She was great, and I don't know why this bitterness has come out.
AOTV Production says Ricochet responded to ESPN's C grade of Wrestlepalooza, saying that AEW shows was way better than that. You think he did that on his own, or someone asked him? I mean, this is just a guy pulling for his own company, right? That's all we're talking about.
Yeah. I love what Ricochet's doing. He seems like a great guy, and every time I talk to him, I really like him personally. But what he's done with the social media, I think he's been fantastic. He's always creating something controversial. He always sticks up for his product, but he always finds a way to put himself over, and he does a great job of doing that. So I love what he's doing. I think it's perfect for both AEW and for himself.
James McCone is with us here live, and he says more Conrad ads. Yes, sir. But if you want to hear these without ads, you can check us out at adfreeshows.com. Just want to give a quick plug there. And while we're doing that, by the way, we should shout out top guy Kelly Cox, who's been with us since a few days before Christmas, December 22nd of 2020, one of our top guys there. Also want to love on another legacy member, Ryan Connolly. He signed up in our first month of ad-free shows. That's Ryan Connolly, who started with us on April 16th, 2020. And David Johnson just signed up this year. Want to give him some love. Appreciate all of our family members joining us live here tonight from adfreeshows.com. I do want to talk a little bit about ESPN. There was a WWE-centric media call with ESPN executives this past week, John, and ESPN Plus Senior Vice President JT Lasker and Vice President of Programming and Acquisitions Matt Kinney fielded various questions, and one of those was asking if the people who are covering ESPN would have what he called editorial independence. And the answer was, I think the answer to that is an emphatic yes, said Lasker. And Kenny followed with an unequivocal yes, adding there's a separation of church and state. We have some PR folks on the call that can underscore that, but yes. And I think that speaks to that when we saw Hale come out with a C rating, which I'll admit I didn't see coming. But is this the new TKO approach? I mean, people have been pretty loud and proud and critical of the UFC for a long time when they were covering things on the MMA side of things. And I recognize that MMA and pro wrestling are different. But once upon a time, a guy like Ariel Helwani wound up getting himself banned from UFC events because he reported something, Brock Lesnar related as it would be, that Dana White just didn't want out there yet. I think they've mended fences in the last calendar month and everything's back to normal again. But it does feel like things are changing now, and maybe you can be more critical. It's an about face for WWE from a PR perspective, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. And, I understand what Dana was doing. I understand what Vince, if he was here, he'd be doing. And I understand what WWE is probably going to be doing. I mean, look, just because you give them editorial integrity doesn't mean you allow them to write all kinds of bad stuff. Maybe you just don't use them. I mean, if a guy's going to come on and bash your own product, I mean, there's a part there where you're saying, okay, we got to allow some of this, but at some point it's going to hurt business. I mean, I just think that it can be a really bad idea. That's what I'm talking about with Hale. I just don't think the first one is where I would have chose to do that. I understand you're showing the independence, but it's human nature. If I'm the boss and this person's writing all kinds of negative stuff about my company, I'm going to find a way not to use him at some point. And if he's writing it and it's balanced, I get that. And, people are following him. It creates more buzz. There's a fine line there between allowing something that creates a lot of buzz and people that are just negative. And the people that are just negative, I can almost guarantee you, they're going to find a way that they're going to get rid of them. That's just business. You have a theater, you have a restaurant, anything, and somebody's writing a negative report about you and he's working for you. It's human nature that you're going to find a way to shut him up or her up. Do you think the same?
Yeah, listen, I think that this is a slippery slope because we've got people who are, let's be clear. Hale is a legit reporter who has a sporting news background. He's covered more than wrestling for a long, long time, but he's also been a friend to WWE. He really put over the Seth Rollins, the biggest ruse of this millennium or whatever story several weeks ago. So even if John Pollock, the minute the Seth injury happened on TV said, this is a work, Hale was at least saying, hey, it was well done. He was complimentary. So I guess what I'm saying is he's not an AEW bot. He's not a WWE hater, but I think it's okay if he shares his opinion because I think he, like I am a hardcore fan. And I think that show with all of the hype and all of the anticipation and all of the promotion, we couldn't help but have some perhaps unrealistic expectations. We needed the show to be the greatest series of matches in the history of ever with 13 twists and turns and surprises. People were half-ass expecting, will The Rock do something? Well, they wanted stuff that is maybe a little unrealistic. And I think it's because of the media press, but the media press wasn't for us. It was for people who wouldn't normally be watching the show. So I think we just needed to manage those expectations a little better, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. And what I'm thinking is, look, I understand if he sounds like a good reporter, sounds like a good guy. I don't know him, but my point is that this is on a website that people are not hardcore fans. There'll be some hardcore fans on there, obviously, but most are not. If I'm just scrolling through and I'm seeing what's in the NFL today or seeing what's on baseball today, and I see this review and I don't know anything about the product, then I take this review and I just kind of take it at face value without everything you're saying. So I think the placement of it could be bad. I think it is bad. I think it's bad. To me, it's a bad look. And if I'm the writer, if I'm Hale, I'm going to find a way to put a different review in there. I just think it's something that, WWE's probably going to allow, but at some point they're going to find a way to cut off some of those bad reviews because it's going to hurt their business.
If I can be critical of one part of it, I would say that I think Triple H may have accidentally participated in some of this when he did an interview that morning where he said, hey, expect surprises. Now, that's not to say that there weren't some surprises. Maybe the biggest was we saw Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman get back together again, and we did see a title switch. But I think when you say expect surprises, people's minds just go bananas with what could be. I remember at the height of the pandemic, AEW ran a show at Daly's Place, their outdoor venue right there adjacent to the Jag Stadium. And Tony Khan had tweeted and promoted that, hey, he had a huge surprise, an absolute Hall of Fame wrestler and someone who was in his personal top 10. And, man, I was in the crowd and people were saying, oh, it's Brock Lesnar. Oh, it's John Cena. And no disrespect, it wound up being Christian. And I think those fans who thought it was going to be Brock Lesnar or John Cena, they may have been disappointed. Had it not been promoted as if it was going to be a surprise and a top 10 and one of his all-time favorites, and people allowed their imaginations to go wild. And I think if it was just Christian with no real announcement, people would have lost their minds, but maybe the improper expectation was set.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And that's the problem you have now with these big shows. There are so many big shows. And you can't just throw everything at it. You can't hot shot book. You used to could do stuff like that. You can't now because you have so many shows. So you literally have to pace yourself with surprises. You can't I know the fans want to see it all the time, but if it's kind of like The Walking Dead. If you let fans book that, they'd have killed the governor in the first episode. Because that's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. That's the reason I like the Blacklist, because generally like episodes are like one episode's in a silo and the guy gets killed at the end, But if you want to draw somebody in, you got to extend it for a couple seasons like they did with the governor on Walking Dead. With WWE, it's very much the same now. There's only so much you can do. There's only so many returns from Brock. You got to be able to space this stuff out. So you got to book this thing episodically. And because of that, I think you're going to see some fans disappointed. And, when Hunter says something like that, people are going to, oh my goodness, The Rock's coming back. You have this come back. And all of a sudden the mind goes crazy.
Let's spend a little bit of time and talk about what today is. I can't believe this is real, but 29 years ago today was one of my sleeper favorite In Your House episodes of all time. It was In Your House Mind Games, live on pay-per-view from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this show is really mostly notable for two things. The main event, which was an unbelievable match between Shawn Michaels and Mankind. I think it might even be on the Mount Rushmore of matches that didn't have a clean finish. It was a DQ finish, but it showed a different side of the boyhood dream coming true. It showed a different side of the white meat baby face Shawn Michaels. He had to up his game, and he had to be a little more violent, a little more aggressive. And it was one of Mankind's real standout moments for Mick Foley in the WWE. Let's not forget, he's fresh off of an incredible feud with The Undertaker. He's going to pick it up the following month with the Buried Alive match. But who comes in and in their first match with The Undertaker beats him, and then later has Paul Bearer leave The Undertaker and come with him? So he comes with a ton of momentum off of that SummerSlam the month prior, where it was the Boiler Room Brawl and Paul turned. So now he's up getting a title shot against Shawn Michaels. And I think this match is terrific. Mick Foley himself has said it's one of, if not his favorite match that he had. Now, I'm not saying it's his most famous match, but he's really proud of that performance. What did you think of that main event, and how do you think it stands up, with the test of time, if you will?
I think it'll stand up forever. You got two of the greatest of all time. Look at what Shawn Michaels did in his career, the matches he had. He had the incredible matches with Bret Hart. He had incredible matches with The Undertaker. He had incredible matches with Mankind. He had incredible matches with everybody he stepped in the ring with. And think about how different those guys are. I mean, Shawn's not a huge guy. He had great matches with The Undertaker. He had good matches with Vader. Wish he'd have got Vader several years before that and got the old Vader. They would have made a ton of money. But Mankind was the same. I mean, Mick was unbelievable as a worker out there. The stuff he would put together and the stuff that he could do out there. I mean, I just think you got two guys that were all-time greats, and you got them at the right time in their careers and put them out there, and magic happened.
I love that main event. I challenge everybody to go check it out. It's a little thing, but one of my favorite things from the match, and I know everybody talks about the crossbody that was supposed to be a callback to the Vader match that was supposed to look like a botch, but that was by design. They also talk about the incredible table bump that Mankind took. We saw some of the aftermath here on the playback on YouTube just a moment ago. But the thing that stood out to me is when Shawn peeled back the pads around the ring, those mats around the ring, and then he covered Mankind up with it and just jumped up and down on it. It was so silly, so off the cuff. It just felt like, wait a minute, this is not babyface stuff. This is a hardened edge. I really appreciate this match. I hope that people will go check it out. But the thing that's maybe most notable about this is not just the incredible main event, but something that technically didn't even air on the pay-per-view. It was on the pre-show. They used to call it the free-for-all, and this is back before we all had DVRs. Back then, you had to get a newspaper or a TV guide, or you even had a channel that just showed you what's coming up on TV, and WWE would capitalize on that channel and show a match or two for free and really do a last-minute sell job to try to get you to order the pay-per-view. Will you find yourself working what I believe would have been your first WWF pay-per-view? Is that right?
I think so, yes. Yes.
So it's your first time on a WWF pay-per-view. Technically, it's the pre-show, but whatever. Hey, we're taking these victories when we can get them when we're new in the company. And you're in there with Savio Vega in a Caribbean strap match. Have you worked a Caribbean strap match at that point before?
Not a Caribbean strap match. I'd worked a strap match before, which is, pretty basic type. There's only so much you can do. It's like a bull rope match. There's only so much you can do in that match. I remember Savio before, he goes, hey, listen to me. He goes, they really like to hear the belt crack on your back, so, hit me really hard. I'm like, you're wearing a jersey. You dick. He just started laughing because I'm out there with a Bears shirt, just getting the hell beat out of me. Because I'm the heel. Because I'm gonna take for everyone I give him, I'm gonna take 10 back. And Savio's the best. I saw Savio the other day. He's working as an agent in AAA. I was incredibly lucky. Savio was my tryout match. Savio was my first angle. Savio was my first storyline. Savio was my first pay-per-view. Savio was everything. It was everything. He was. We called him the bumblebee. Because bumblebees aren't supposed to fly. And he would get up on the top rope like, he can't do that. And all of a sudden he'd fly. And you go like, he's a bumblebee. He's not supposed to be able to do that. He'd do those spin kicks. He was so freaking good. Savio was one of the best workers I've ever been in the ring with. He's also one of the best human beings on the planet. But he'd hit you with that freaking kick. And it looked like it took your head off, barely touch you. I mean, he was an incredible worker. It was so fun being out there with him. I loved every minute of it being out there with Savio. But no, I'd had strap matches before. He'd obviously had a lot more than me, but I'd had them before. But it's only so much you can do. You just get out there, and people want to hear you get beat up with the belt, which is not much fun, especially when you're the heel.
All right, I'm going to have some fun with this question. John, what's the difference between a strap match and a Caribbean strap match?
One has Savio Vega in it.
There you go. Okay.
That's the only difference. There's no difference to it whatsoever.
Hey, I do want to give a little love to Savio Vega because I don't know that a lot of people have put this together. But if you read Goldust's book, he gives a lot of credit for Savio Vega, where he said he didn't really get how to use this gimmick and interact with the crowd until he was working with Savio. And in the middle of a match, Savio started suggesting that the Goldust character do things that immediately resonated and got a reaction with the crowd. Goldust, to this day, gives a lot of credit to Savio Vega for making the real life Dustin feel comfortable and find a niche of how to work that gimmick with the crowd. Not only that, but when Steve Austin is first in the company and trying to stand out and move up long before he's Stone Cold, he too gives a ton of credit to Savio Vega for being the guy to get him ready. He was already established in the eyes of WWE brass. Steve Austin was not. I don't think Savio Vega gets enough love and appreciation from fans that I know he gets from the boys.
He absolutely. There's no way. The boys love him. I mean, absolutely love him. He's just, for one, he's a good dude. I mean, he's just a good guy. Savio's funny. He's a funny guy to be around. I love being around him. Hey, motherfucker. He's the best. He's so fun to be. But he's also a terrific worker. I mean, he's a great worker. That's why they stuck all these guys with him. I mean, I'm so lucky I had him in my career. He helped me tremendously. Coming into WWE, you're overwhelmed by all of the TV. You're overwhelmed by the venues. You're overwhelmed by everything. I was out there with a guy who was an incredible pro in Savio Vega. Man, it was like putting on old slippers, man. It was so much fun to be out there with him. And he'd call stuff to you just in a calm way. Hey, let's try this or try that. While we're out there, it was just a pleasure to be out there with him. I mean, Savio is. I smile every time I see him. I love him so much.
Well, of course, the reason we're talking about this match is not even necessarily because it was a great match, but it was. It's not necessarily because we love Savio Vega, but we do. It was because there was a stunt planned on the pre-show, and this is in the infancy of the internet. But we start to get a little bit of momentum, and we didn't know this at the time, but about a year prior to this is when there became an unofficial but yet very official working relationship between WWE and ECW. And we started to see talent come back and forth and some checks go back and forth. And we don't know that as fans watching at home. But here we are in the home of ECW, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We know that ECW is going to be represented by the hardcore fans in the crowd, whether it's with their T-shirts or their signs. But there just happened to be 3 ECW talent sitting front and center. It's Sandman, it's Paul E. Dangerously, and of course, Tommy Dreamer. And at one point during this match, Sandman stands up and spits beer in Savio's face. And this becomes something that is shot, but you can tell it's done in a way where, hey, maybe we weren't supposed to see that. And even in some of the photos and highlights from this match that Silva was showing earlier with us on YouTube, you could see WWE officials chatting with those guys over the guardrail. So this is a planned stunt. We learned that after the fact. That day, when did you find out, and what did you know, and when did you know, John, that, wait a minute, what's happening now?
There are a lot of people that don't know that I knew. I've heard guys on podcasts, and I was told differently from Savio. So they told Savio about the stunt, but they didn't tell me. And so they told Savio, keep me from going over the rail, after the guys, because that was the natural instinct. You have somebody else from a different company that was invading your company that, you can't stand for that. And so they were worried that, hey, we're going to do it with Savio. But this was stupid. Conrad, I cannot tell you how stupid this was. And I'll explain to you in a second, but why it was stupid. I mean, this could have been a freaking disaster in front of 15,000 people. Savio had been told right before I walked out, Lanza pulls me aside. Jack Lanza pulls me aside, and he says, hey, kid, if something happens in that corner there, he goes, don't overreact. And I said, Jack, you're not going to tell me if something happens, don't overreact in a specific corner unless something is going to happen. And he said, correct. If something happens in that corner, don't overreact. Don't go over the rail. And I said, okay. So at that point, I realized something was going to happen. We go outside the ring, and now Savio, I'm out there with Savio. Savio does not know that I know. Okay. So Savio's, he's the one that's going to position himself. And then if anything happens, he's supposed to put the rope around my neck and make sure that he pulls me aside, that there's not a fight, between us and the guys. Now, those guys, I don't know if they even know that Savio's been smartened up. This was Conrad, this was dumb. This was really dumb not to smarten up the participants involved. So we go outside the ring, and Savio goes, wrong corner. He says it to himself. He says it out loud. So I'm like, well, here it comes, because I know it's coming. Then I see what's happening, and Savio comes over to me and goes, okay, it's all right, big guy. Let's go back inside. And we went back inside and finished out what we were doing. Well, in the meantime, Briscoe comes out, and he wants to fight Tommy Dreamer. Briscoe's furious. He comes out. He literally wants to fight Tommy Dreamer. So when Briscoe comes out, Bruce grabs him and says, it's a work, Jerry. Jerry didn't know. He literally had come out to fight. By the time I get to the back, all the boys are there. And I remember who all was, I don't know if the Harris boys were still with us, but if they were there. The Godwins were there. Undertaker was there. Everybody was there. They're all wanting to go out there and fight. And Lanza stopped them before they made it out. Now, if Lanza doesn't stop them, they're coming out there. They're coming out there to fight. And they had the Dudleys were somewhere in the arena, I believe. I've heard Bubba tell the story later. In case a fight broke out.
Taz too.
What's that?
Taz was there too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but the problem was, forget about whether they can fight or not. They're outnumbered 30-6. Whatever it is. We got the whole dressing room was there, ready to come out of Gorilla and go fight these guys. This thing could have been a disaster. To not smarten up some of the boys, especially when it happens. So when it starts to happen, smarten up the guys. They can't go on. I don't even think we had the internet back then, but they certainly couldn't stooge it to anybody. This could have been an absolute disaster. And when I came back, everybody said, was that a work? And I said, yeah, it was a work. And everybody's fine with it after that. But when they first saw it, nobody had been smartened up to it. It was really a risk that they took.
Do you think that anybody in the locker room had any idea that there was a working relationship with WWE and ECW prior to that moment? No, I don't think so. I never heard anything about it. No, I don't think so. They kept that really kayfabed. Unless something pops up. I don't remember anything that gave that away. It was always just kind of, King had gone over there and we'd done some stuff back and forth. And, we thought they were trying to work out a relationship. We obviously knew they had talked, because, those guys aren't going to show up at our event after we find out, the guys found out it was a work. Obviously they were let in by us. And, so we knew something was working with that, but I don't think we knew that checks were going back and forth and Vince was funding ECW at that time. As if those two things weren't notable enough on September 22nd. A year later is when the WWF changes in a major way. That's the day where Vince would approach Brett backstage in Madison Square Garden on the first ever Madison Square Garden Monday Night Raw and tell Brett, I can't afford your contract. Go see if you can get that deal from Atlanta and go get paid. That's also the day where something that a lot of hardcore fans never thought would happen. We would see the debut of Cactus Jack on WWF television. We'd already firmly established Mankind
in my match.
And there you go. We're going to get unbelievably Cactus Jack in the WWE. But that's also the day where Vince McMahon took his very first Stone Cold Stunner. This is a pretty damn historic day in WWE history, September 22nd. And on the other channel, while all that's happening in 1997, it was Bill Goldberg's WCW television debut. This is like a monumental day in wrestling history when you think about it.
That's huge. And I said it my match. Mankind debuted my first match, not Cactus. I was mistaken. Different character. Same person, different character. Yeah, we're all waiting for that stunner. It's the worst stunner in the history of the world. It's so anticlimactic. I mean, if it hadn't been Vince, I think people would have booed. It was so bad. And, Vince can take bumps. Vince is a tough guy. He loves taking big bumps. That was the worst stunner ever, and it had been built up forever. Eric was just a step ahead of us. Eric Bischoff was just a step ahead of us. We got with ECW. They'd gotten in the cruiserweights. They got all this different stuff. We were trying to bring anything in. We tried the NWA to come in with Jeff Jarrett and Cornette. I mean, Eric was just a step ahead of us everywhere. We didn't catch him until the Montreal Screwjob, and then Mr. McMahon was created, and Tyson comes in after that, and Stone Cold gets hot. I mean, Eric up at this point he was playing a different game than us, and he was light years ahead of us.
Hey, I do want to ask, when that news comes down and Vince is going to meet with Brett, allegedly Brett showed up late to the building that day. Surprise.
No, Brett was late all the time. But it wasn't a big deal. It was Brett. Nobody cared. Brett was late. He'd come flying in his rent-a-car and always be late. But he was always on last too. Nobody cared. It wasn't a big deal. It was Bret Hart.
When did you guys know, hey, Vince just told him he can't afford his contract? Does that become a whisper campaign through the locker room that day, or is it days or weeks later when everybody finds out?
No, it became evident pretty quick. I don't remember exactly the time frame. It became evident pretty quick because I remember thinking, man, brother, I can't believe I finally made it to the big time and I chose the wrong company. I thought we're losing Brett. We're done. I mean, Scott and Kevin had already created the NWO, and they were killing us in ratings. And like I say, Eric was a step ahead of us on everything at that time. And all of a sudden now we're losing Bret Hart. I thought, man, we got no chance. And Lanza's the one that pulled me aside, and he saw how worried it was. And he was sitting there with that cigarette, and he goes, kid, you see that guy right there? And he's talking about Vince, and he goes, as long as that guy's in the chair, we're going to be fine. And he goes, I've seen it all. I've seen the Warrior come and go. I've seen Hogan come and go. He said, we're going to be fine. And from that point forward, I felt pretty good about it. I was still nervous. Wasn't convinced, but it certainly made me feel a lot better. But yeah, I think a lot of the boys were pretty concerned. We didn't have huge stars. We had Shawn and Undertaker, but we didn't have just a ton of stars. Those kind of came a little bit later. And Steve was not completely on fire yet, and that changed everything when Steve got on fire. But I mean, we were getting killed, and now we're losing Brett. It seemed like another nail in the coffin for us.
And as if that wasn't enough, we should mention, as you're saying, it feels like a nail in the coffin that day when Brett finds out that Vince is not going to be able to honor his contract financially. The dark match that had been promoted through local New York City media was a battle royal, and the winner would get a title shot when WWE came back to MSG in November, 2 months later. So I know what you're thinking. Well, who won that one? Was it Sid, or was it Vader, or maybe it was The Undertaker? Who did win that? It was the Brooklyn Brawler. The Brooklyn Brawler wins the Battle Royal to earn a title shot 2 months later at MSG. You were in that match. What do you remember thinking as you get thrown out ass over tea kettle and the Brooklyn Brawler's in the ring? He won? What's going on?
We thought Vince had something up his sleeve, and I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing something. Brawler had been around forever, and obviously Vince was going to do something with him, and I thought, I'm not sure what it is, but he must have some grandiose plan. Turns out he had no plan at all. He never even gave him the title match. So Brawler was pissed about it for years, and he never got the shot. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, we just thought Vince has got some big plan with Brawler. He's going to do something. You know, he liked Brawler, liked Steve, and Steve's a good guy. He's a good worker, and we thought he had some type of grandiose plan. I don't know what he's going to do to tell what character he's going to be coming out. Turned out he didn't have a plan at all. He put him over, then never gave him the match.
I don't know why that's funny to me, but it is just the idea of everybody knowing this is the plan and just going like, now
Vince
wait,
took his picture down in Barclays too.
and just so you know, I can't believe this is real. He did get the title shot, so don't let him.
Oh, he did. I thought he never got it.
He wrestled Shawn Michaels 2 months later for the world title in Madison Square Garden, and they went 15 minutes.
Oh, I thought he didn't get it.
Well, listen, it's a better story if we say he didn't get it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he didn't get it. I've completely remembered wrong. I thought he didn't get it.
Well, something that we know that we can help you get. Well, actually, we got a question here from James.
Well, that just killed my whole thing. I thought Brawler didn't get it. There was something that Brawler didn't get. I'm just misremembering.
Well, he didn't win the title, if that's what you.
No, he didn't. I knew he didn't win the title, but maybe it was because we thought he had some like grandiose plan of some new gimmick or something. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. Maybe I'm conflating it with him taking his picture down in Barclays. When Vince walked in, there was Brooklyn's picture up there, and I think they replaced it with The Rock. They did. They did.
It's probably a good trade. James Weston's with us here live, and a few minutes ago, he asked for my help. He said, Conrad, my tummy hurts. Any advice? Nothing for your tummy, but I can say, guys, enter the room dick first. Blue Chew isn't just a tablet. It's a cheat code for your crunch. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. Like somebody gave your downstairs a pep talk and a gym membership, Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. And sometimes I take a Blue Chew just to make standing in line a little easier. Gives me something to lean on. Guys, this isn't about your performance. This is about your legacy or your third legacy. Nothing makes you more of a legend than a little Blue Chew. Go discover your options right now at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use the promo code WRESTLE at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head on over to BlueChew.com for details and important safety information. And a big thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do something that we almost never do. We want to welcome in a very special guest to the program. John's friend and hopefully mine now too, Mr. David Otunga joins the show. Mr. Otunga, how are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me on here. What's up, John?
David, how you doing? I'm so mad. We're friends on Facebook and Instagram, and David is like aging backwards. I hate him, man. He looks better and better every single day, and I look worse and worse. As I used to say with Ron, I gotta work out to look this bad. And David looks like a freaking like he walked off a statue, so like a pedestal somewhere in Greece.
Thank you for that.
Well, we appreciate you jumping on with us. We wanted to have some expert legal advice here today because over the weekend, some news broke that I think got everybody's attention. Raja Jackson, the son of the UFC legend Rampage Jackson, was arrested on Thursday, and this is for an event that happened last month. We all know the story there, but I guess TMZ is reporting that the 25-year-old was taken into custody, and he was booked on a felony charge. What do you make of this? What can you tell us about the status now? And were you surprised that this happened?
Well, I wasn't surprised that this happened. I just was surprised that it took so long. It took some 26 days for Raja to be arrested. A lot of people were speculating on why that was, myself included. I feel like the police had a hard time figuring out what exactly happened here. Was this a work? Was this a shoot? And even then, those definitions, wrestling terms, and a receipt, they kind of had to learn all this. And the thing of it is, if you watch the video and you saw what happened, you know there was a crime there. And so I think it was more them trying to figure out what the exact crime was. And the details have been limited on this, but TMZ is reporting that he was charged with a felony battery because battery in California, where this took place, can either be a misdemeanor or a felony. It's called a wobbler. It depends on what the charge is. But in this case, it was serious enough there where he was charged with a felony with serious bodily injury, which I do believe is the correct charge. A lot of people had been speculating that it, could be attempted murder. And if you're not a lawyer and you see this, yeah, you might think that. However, attempted murder is a lot more difficult to prove than people think. And when I saw this, as awful as it was, I just didn't see the elements there for attempted murder. But definitely battery with serious bodily injury. That's a slam dunk for prosecutors, in my opinion.
You know, we don't know exactly what's going to happen next. I think there's a report that he's already bonded out for $50,000 bail. It happened at some point the first night he was there. So he is out, and I'm sure that we're going to get, you know, some details in the coming weeks or days. But is this something that you think could wind up going to a trial, or do you think this becomes a plea deal, or what do you expect might be the outcome in this situation?
You know, it's really hard to say because it's so public. And in fact, I mean, what's interesting to me, especially as a lawyer, is the fact that this entire incident was live streamed. And so you have the defendant essentially testifying throughout this entire ordeal. But then there's the whole element where it is live streamed, and is he kind of in gimmick, or does he have kind of a character on his live stream? And so can you attribute his statements to his actual mental state, or was he performing in some way, which just makes this extremely interesting. But I would think this probably does go to a trial because, I mean, there's so much that could be argued on both sides. Where was this a work? Where was this a shoot? How much did Raja know? Because there's a lot of fault here on the promotion itself, and you can see from the video they didn't really smarten Raja up to this, you know, too well, and they didn't really explain what the spot is, and they never really explained to him what a receipt was. So you're telling a trained MMA fighter that he gets to get his lick back for real, and you can really lay it in. So how is he supposed to interpret this? Now, that being said, clearly he went way beyond the scope of that. Yeah, as you can see here, he went way beyond this. I mean, once Psycho Stu was knocked out, Raja should have known you don't punch somebody who's knocked out. I thought that was just a universal rule, but apparently not. However, that being said, this would be an amazing trial. I think it's in Raja's best interest to try and get a plea deal, because this stream and this video, this is damning evidence. I mean, some of this, there was a point in there, I called it the smoking gun, where he really self-incriminates, and he says that he knows this is a work, he knows this is show, but he's going to go in there and F him up for real. And that's exactly what he did. So I think that is going to be a slam dunk for prosecutors. I think it would be in Raja's best interest to try and take a plea deal. And especially as far as I know, I don't believe he has a record. So he could possibly even avoid jail time and, you know, get off with felony probation or something.
David, is the felony, is it probatable? And another thing, if he gets a plea deal, we think it can be dropped to a misdemeanor. You think that's the option? Because the felony, is that something that is a non-probatable offense?
No, he could get probation with the felony. And in this case, I don't think it's likely that they would drop this down to a misdemeanor. I just don't, especially because it was so public. The public pressure for him to be arrested, and the video is so graphic. The injuries sustained by Psycho Stu, because here's the other thing is, again, the details have been limited, but Raja is presently charged with a felony battery with serious bodily injury. And the maximum penalty on that is 4 years in state prison and I think a $10,000 fine. Now, there's something in California called great bodily injury that can be added on to a battery, and that is another 3 years. So they haven't announced that that's been added, but that's something I wouldn't be surprised to see added. So possibly with a plea bargain, he might be able to avoid that, but I don't see any way that he's not getting a felony for this.
Won't this be something where almost the whole business is being put on trial? I mean, because they'll use examples in the past. What happens when a match gets out of hand? What happens when a match is no longer a work? What happens when a match gets a little bit stiff and somebody receipts back? I mean, just you're talking about the trial being incredibly interesting. I mean, this could be absolutely. I mean, I know we have human beings, lives at stake here. This could be incredibly interesting. What's going on, the banter between the lawyers, right?
Oh yeah, extremely. And for the whole thing is, where does a work stop, and
Right.
who is involved and what is the scope of that? I find that extremely interesting because, John, as you know, like when you're in the ring with another person, you're consenting. I'm letting another person punch me in the face. You know what I mean? I'm working with this guy. And so I'm trusting my body with my partner. They're not my opponent, they're my partner. Now, at what point does that scope end? So say I'm allowing somebody to punch me and it's a little stiffer than I wanted. Now, what if they really just start hauling off and attacking me? Is that, which it clearly would be far outside of the scope, but then now where's the line there? And, this kind of case could, impact that because it's not clearly defined. It depends on the promotion. It depends on the individuals, what somebody's comfortable with. There's so many questions here, but to me, this is fascinating.
Yeah, and the nuance is going to be unbelievable because you talk about you've been around the business long enough, like I have, David, and we joke about receipts. We joke about I catch a guy with a pretty good punch. Oh, I'm gonna get that one back, and sure enough, you do. So we're sitting here. We got so much nuance going on here. I mean, it's gonna be unbelievable for these lawyers to have and judge and potentially a jury to have to decipher wrestling talk and wrestling actions with all of this. What do you think ends up happening with this trial?
And that's such a great point. And I just want to add to that it's so difficult. I was watching this coverage when it came out, and you have lawyers and different legal personalities weighing in. But to me, I'm kind of laughing because they don't understand what even the term selling is. So they're totally misinterpreting this. And then what's a work? They totally don't understand that. But then hearing from the wrestlers weighing in, they have no idea the legal consequences and nuances here. And so finally, there's something where my two worlds intersect, where I'm the perfect person to talk about this because I understand both sides of this. And ultimately, this was just a mess. This was a tragic fiasco all the way around. And if you ask me what I think is going to happen, honestly, I don't know, because a trial would be amazing. And I could see it happening, but I probably think a plea deal is better for Raja. I mean, again, if he really thinks he didn't do anything wrong, if he has the right defense team, he could very well argue his way out of this. He really could, or at least, to a lesser charge. But I think the safe way is a plea bargain because he might be able to negotiate it down to just probation and avoid jail time altogether. You never know.
Yeah, and David, you say you're the perfect guy to discuss this. I've got a Mayan calendar here behind me that's a replica and a terracotta war soldier behind me as well. You've got a Harvard banner and a wrestling belt. So you beat me at that too. And I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy that your background is that much better than mine.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm in my virtual office, but yeah, that's my Harvard Law degree back there.
I know what it is. Good grief. That's awesome. Good for you. I love it. You're like the real legitimate lawyer that we always had, like Clarence Mason and these guys, and then all of a sudden we get David Otunga and go, he's a Harvard trained lawyer. I go, yeah, sure he is. No, he really is.
What's funny is still to this day in my comments, people are like, wait, you're really a lawyer? I thought that was just a gimmick. Or then there's people in the comments like, whoa, congratulations, David Otunga. After WWE, you went and became a lawyer. No, I was a lawyer the entire time. That's right. I'm a shoot lawyer.
What a phrase, a shoot lawyer. Hey, I do want to ask one more question, at least from your perspective, David. If this attack from Raja onto Stu would have happened immediately after the beer can blow, because I think we all agreed that was a worked shot with an empty beer can. He wasn't trying to inflict any damage. You even heard Stu say something like, "Are you not going to sell it?" or something along those lines. If Raja would have immediately fired back a live round in that moment, does that change this? Does he still wind up getting arrested, or is it a totally different tone and tenor if it happens like that?
No, this is a great question. That completely changes this. Totally different tone and tenor. If Raja had immediately fired back, he would be warranted. He would be well within his right, and this would be a clear case of self-defense. Because again, up until this point, if you cut it off there and you ignore everything that happened after this, Raja just showed up at a wrestling event to see his friend who was wrestling that night. He is a streamer. He's backstage. A wrestler just who he doesn't know just comes up to him and smashes him on the head with a beer can. But now it's a work. So again, to somebody who's not a worker, this would be extremely confusing. Like, wait, this guy just hit me in the head, but it didn't hurt. And what is he doing? And then like, what's going on? Does he want to fight me? Should I fight him? Because again, Raja is not a worker. So this was real life to him. You got to look at that. So Raja had every right to fire back on this guy right there, and it would have been Psycho Stu's fault. Now, where things go left is the fact that it was explained to him, and they apologized. They shook hands and said, hey, you can run into his match, and we'll make this into something. We'll make a spot out of this. You get to get your receipt. And, if you actually go through that video, nowhere do we ever hear them tell Raja to throw working punches or whatever he's supposed to do. There's one point in the video where a guy is whispering to Raja, presumably giving him his spot. And I don't know what they told him, but I'm pretty certain they did not tell him to go in there and throw live punches 23 times after Stu was unconscious. I'm pretty sure they didn't say that. So I don't think it's in dispute that Raja went way, way, way too far and is responsible for his actions. But again, if he had just hauled off and punched Psycho Stu right after the beer can incident, it would have been easily self-defense.
David, what do you think happens if you're trying to handicap this as what's going to end up happening from the judge or jury if this thing does go to a jury trial? What do you think is the final outcome of this? Your most likely outcome?
It's really hard to say, honestly, because it's going to come down to the arguments. I mean, which lawyer understands wrestling terms better? Because you could make a strong argument that, they didn't explain this to Raja and he was under the impression he was allowed to do so. They told him to really punch the guy. Raja's an MMA fighter. In his mind, MMA fighters are told to throw punches until the referee pulls him off. Raja does say something about that in here. Like there's all these different things you could build. But then again, on the flip side, the prosecution could really just hammer in. It doesn't matter. He knows that this was supposed to be fake or a work, and he went way beyond that and how much he incriminated himself. So it's really hard to say. But again, if I really had to bet, I would say it's going to be a plea bargain. And I don't think he's avoiding a felony. He might be able to avoid jail time or get 1 year, maybe 1 year in county and probation.
And David, this seems like so crazy. You and I have been in business a long time, and we haven't seen anything like this in our entire lifetime. Is something like this? People say, "Well, this is going to open up the door, Pandora's box." I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's going to all of a sudden you're going to have people. Oh, that guy was working too stiff or something. Where I'm going to file charges on him. I don't think that it opened up Pandora's box. Do you? I think this is such an extreme thing that is such an outlier from everything that's gone on because we haven't seen this before. We probably aren't going to see this again, are we?
Right. And I totally agree with you. This is such an outlier, such a unique case, and we've never seen anything like it before, and we probably will not ever again. This is so unique. So this is somebody who is a civilian, basically, who is brought into the ring to do a spot. Now, that doesn't usually happen. And John, I know but in WWE, if they have a civilian or somebody who's a non-worker that is going to come in for a spot, they rehearse this ad nauseum. Even if this is not a civilian, just the regular performers, WWE superstars, we rehearse a ton. If another WWE superstar is going to come and make a run-in in the match, we rehearse that. So that's why this is just such a unique situation where it's like watching that stream. It's still wild to me, like how this ended up happening, because there were so many points throughout the night for over an hour that this could have been avoided. So many ways this could have been avoided. and it wasn't. It was like the perfect storm of things that had to go wrong in order for this to happen, and it did.
David, do you expect there to be any civil charges? I mean, we've talked about this strictly from a criminal perspective, but do you think Stu and his wife may actually wind up suing Raja civilly as well?
It's hard to say. I mean, we haven't heard anything from Stu, so we don't know, where his mind state is or how he's leaning. However, I mean, I do think that a civil suit would be very successful here. I mean, there's a lot of people who could be sued. Raja, the promotion. I mean, there's a lot of torts that I could think of. There are civil actions, negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress. There's a lot. So yeah, again, I don't know what his mindset is. Maybe Stu just wants to put it behind him. Who knows? So it remains to be seen.
You mentioned a lot of people could be sued, and of course, that's a response to a civil question. Criminally, do you think anyone else could be charged? Does anyone else have any criminal liability, in your opinion?
I don't know all of the facts and the details and what exactly was explained to Raja and what wasn't, but just based off of the video stream that I watched and the evidence that's been made aware to me, I think it's just Raja. It's very clear that he acted on his own. It was premeditated. He went outside the scope. I know that AJ Mana caught a lot of backlash for this because he was Raja's friend and he told him, get your receipt, lay him in, tag him. But a lot of people were calling for AJ to be an accomplice. But that's wild to me, to think that AJ would know what Raja was going to do, and then he would have to help him do that in some way. And so the elements of an accomplice just aren't there. They really are not. And, if anything, I would think that if AJ knew about this and that's his friend, he would probably have gone out there and stopped it. So I think Raja is really the only one, clearly facing criminal charges here based on the evidence we know now.
Would there be any charges as far as negligence, by the organization itself? And I'm not saying that there is. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody, but there's any chance there, if it was in a licensed state, and I don't know if Nevada is a licensed state or not, you might have a problem getting future license because of the incident. Is that a possibility?
Oh, that's definitely a possibility. And again, I don't know what actually was said or done by the organization. I've heard rumors Raja had been there before or was there the day before. I don't know what the conversations were like there. But again, based on the video, there's a number of places for negligence. I don't ever see Raja sign a contract or a waiver or anything like that. And just the fact that Raja didn't even know when his spot was, like, clearly just negligence, recklessness.
Right.
Well, we can't thank you enough for all the time today, man. You've been so gracious with all your time. How can fans who are listening to this keep up with what you're doing these days?
Well, they can go to my YouTube channel at DD Otunga, where I'm covering all things law and wrestling now. It's the beautiful intersection of my two worlds.
What a great gimmick. I mean, it really is. You really are. I mean, you're a fantastically smart guy. You're a good guy, but you also got the Harvard law degree and that you're a wrestler, and a very good one. So you've got a niche into yourself, because I don't think anybody's going to take that job from you.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? I'll be honest. This is the silver lining in all of this, because I made one video and it blew up, and I was like, that was kind of fun. I liked it. Like, I love this case just in that it's so fascinating to me, being a wrestler and a lawyer. And then I got so many great comments and just feedback and people asking about different cases. I was like, you know what? That's a great question. I think I'm going to answer that too. And you're right. This is the most specific niche, most perfectly suited to myself. I'm somebody who's somewhat of a jack of all trades, or an ace of all trades, I heard the other day. So this is a way for me to put all of that together in one place.
Well, David, man, it is so good to see you. When Conrad told you that you're coming on, I was so excited that you're coming on. So I always get a big smile on my face when I see you, because I love you so much. So it's great to see you.
Oh, thank you, John. Likewise. Always a pleasure.
Nice to meet you, David. We greatly appreciate it. Check him out on YouTube. We'll be sure to link it in the description for today's show as well. He's our new resident legal expert around these parts.
That's right.
Hey, I like that. And it's nice to meet you too, Conrad. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you. And we know you'll appreciate Magic Spoon. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? You got to check out Magic Spoon. You've heard John and I brag about it for months now. They make fantastic high-protein, zero-sugar cereal and treats, reinvented from your childhood. You can actually taste the nostalgia. You see, every serving of Magic Spoon high-protein cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and only 4 grams of net carbs. They come in all your favorite nostalgic flavors: fruity, cocoa, frosted. If that sounds familiar, that's by design. It tastes just like the ones you grew up with, but without all the sugar, and instead a ton of protein. Now, I'm here to brag about the high protein treats from Magic Spoon. They're crispy, they're crunchy, they're airy, and it's a great way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. They come in awesome flavors like marshmallow. That'll taste just like the ones Mom used to make. You got chocolatey peanut butter and my favorite, double chocolate. You'll enjoy these on the go, pre or post workout, even as a midnight snack. And right now you can get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/wrestle, or just look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/wrestle for $5 off. John, how terrific was David, man? That was fantastic.
How good is David Otunga? I love that guy. I really do. I mean, we need commentary together. David is such a smart guy. Obviously, he's a smart guy, but he's just a good dude, man. He has there's a difference between smart and, a lot of common sense, being able to banter and things. David's one of these guys just born with a ton of common sense and a lot of intelligence also. It's fun being around him.
Well, somebody else I know that you and I both think is a lot of fun being around is Corey Graves. I'm bringing him up because he's your color commentator partner for a long, long time.
Yep.
But this past week, we saw him do something that we haven't seen in a long time. His first bump in a WWE ring in what feels like forever. It's no secret that WWE sort of forcibly retired him from in-ring competition. At the time, he was in NXT, and what a cool look and persona he had. And unfortunately, after multiple concussions, WWE said, hey, let's try something else. And I know this wasn't his original plan, but there was a long stretch where he was the voice of not only Raw and SmackDown. So he was the voice of the #1 show in wrestling and the #2 show in wrestling for years. And I think he's done phenomenally well. But I think a lot of people, myself included, were kind of shocked to see him take a big F5 from Brock Lesnar. What'd you think, seeing your friend have a little fun in the ring again?
I loved it because I know Corey has that itch to kind of get back in the ring. If you ever get in the ring, you always want to get back. It's just fun to be in there. Corey's got a great job. And, the thing about being a commentator, though, is you have a ceiling that you're not going to get higher than. And Corey's already the best at what he does. And so there's only he can't become better than the best. He already is the best. So what do you do when you're the best? You figure out something else to do, and that's get in the ring with the beast like Brock Lesnar. I remember when I had to go have surgery one time, and Brock was going to turn the table over on me and Booker. And he's like, be careful because John's hurt or whatever it was, because I was going to have surgery. That was going to be my excuse to be off, was Brock had thrown the table on us or something. And then I think he was going to F5 Michael Cole. So it's always – the announcers tend to always get it, especially the announcers that aren't traditional type wrestlers get it. This is always something that's happening in our business.
We've touched on it before, but I don't think we've talked about it a lot lately. Corey has first of all, his dad was a promoter in the Pittsburgh area. So he's second generation in-ring performer, but his younger brother, I believe, is also a wrestler. We know him as Sam Adonis, who's been a regular fixture down in AAA and certainly made a name for himself in Mexico. And he's even promoted some really fun events in Pittsburgh. Do you think there's a chance that we see them do something together? Would that be possible? I don't know if that's even a thing that they're into. But those guys as a tag team, that could be fun and not necessarily put as much pressure on Corey to make a return for singles, especially if he was just doing something as a one-off. Now, of course, I'm just freestyling here. Corey did an interview with TMZ back in 2022 where he announced that he had been cleared to return to the ring in 2021, but had no plans. But my wheels are spinning because you just said, hey, he's got the itch a little bit. Do you think we'll see him do something in WWE? Will it be in AAA? Would it be an independent? What do you think if Corey comes back he would do?
I think it'd be cool to do something in like AAA. just because it would kind of seem like it's something that is kind of just off the cuff, more so than doing something in WWE. I don't know, but he's such a big fixture in WWE. It's hard to lose him, so it's hard to put him into a storyline because you obviously have to replace him at the table because he does such a good job. But it's such a natural built-in angle with Sam Adonis. Sam is a great worker, good, big, tall guy. I think it'd be great to have them out there. I think people would be so surprised with it. Corey was a good worker. He was a really good heel. Corey really understands the business. That's why he's such a good commentator. I think they'd be a terrific team together. I don't know how long they'd want to be together. Corey's got a great job there as a commentator. And plus the show would miss him if he's out. But,
I
think it'd be a lot of fun to have him do something like that.
I think it could be a lot of fun as a one-off, thinking like a Triple Mania or something, because Corey Graves is well established to that Lucha audience, not only as the voice of AAA now on these WWE AAA crossover events, but don't pretend that they don't see him all the time on WWE TV. Even in Spanish, they're still seeing who the English announcers are. So he's established to that audience. That could be interesting. And we know that Sam Adonis has historically been a heel. If Corey comes in and he gets to play heel, which is probably more fun anyway, I could see that being a lot of fun for him in AAA. But as we're talking through this about the affiliated deal with AAA, WWE does that with TNA too. And they got a pair of brothers running around over there too, don't they?
They certainly do. They have two very entertaining brothers over there. You can have a lot of fun with any of these matchups. Corey, when I went down there to do the AAA deal, it's hard when you're not in a territory every single day to do commentary, because all of a sudden now you got to recall off the top of your head, you may have some notes in front of you, but recall off the top of your head backgrounds for these guys that are out there and storylines. And these guys have long careers. A lot of these are second and third generation guys. I mean, Corey did a massive amount of research. I was blown away by how good he was when he got down there to AAA. I think it'd be great for him to do it down there. He's such a great voice, and I think it'd be great. But I think it would be great at TNA also. You got the Nemeth brothers there. You even got the Hardy boys there. You got some pretty interesting matchups.
I don't know why I'm so drawn to that, but I think, I loved the Harlem Heat. I loved when Owen would tag with Brett. I love the Steiner brothers. Like, I don't know, brother tag teams for me just really work out. I dig it. And I think there's some fun opportunities there. I hope if Corey wants to do something, he gets the chance to do it. And it does feel like WWE might be at least open to it, or else he wouldn't have taken that bump, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Conrad, it's like we're saying with all these surprises, they got so many different shows that they've got to fill with so many different storylines. I mean, it is a daunting task. And you've got like this AAA show. You want to make that thing the biggest lucha show ever. You got this Wrestlepalooza. You want to make it the biggest show ever. Then you've got an event next month. You want to make it the biggest show ever. It is an unbelievable amount of content that they've got to fill for. And there's platforms that this is the biggest show on their platform. So, it's kind of like when wrestling comes to town. That may be the one of 100 matches that you had, but for that town, it's the only one you have. For those people that see you, that's why it's so important that you work hard every night. You've got these different platforms. That's their big show. And you got all these big shows, and you got to have something for it. I think this is perfect for one of these big platforms.
Hey, I wanted to bring up another interview that we saw in Good Morning America. Man, what a media press tour that WWE was on. But Triple H last week was on Good Morning America, and he discussed his retirement. And they're, of course, plugging Wrestlepalooza. And he's mentioning that John Cena is on his retirement tour. And he was asked, hey, when did you make the decision to step away? And he basically said, you get to a place where you're questioning, can I do what I do anymore the way I used to? When you're out there doing it, you feel like you're moving quick. And then you watch it back and you're like, why am I running so slow? Why am I moving like that? You definitely know it's there. And there are some wrestlers who have continued competing well past what fans would consider their prime. And Triple H even admitted that stepping away was one of the toughest choices that a wrestler can make. Did you ever see tape of yourself and come to the same realization? Like we've outlined here before, that you moved away when you were just 42 years old. You had some back injuries and some chronic back problems that were plaguing you. Did you know it? Did you just feel it? Or did you see yourself on tape and say, damn it, I don't like the way that looks. That's not who I want to. Take me through your journey. What was your experience? When did you know, hey, it is time for me to do something else?
Yeah, and there's so much to this, you know, and I understand guys that wrestle too long. I understand why Jordan comes back and plays with the Washington Wizards. I understand why guys play sports too long or wrestle too long. Once you're done, man. And you know, if you're 40-something years old, you may live to be 80 or 90. You're going to live more time after you retire than you lived up till that point. And I can understand, once you're done, you're finished. So I can understand guys wrestling too long. I would have wrestled way too long if I hadn't been hurt. And it's probably what saved me from a lot of injuries, because I would have had nagging injuries, you know, later in my career, but just by being older, because I was starting to get hurt a lot. And I've told you this before. John Cena wanted to do a spot where he put Orlando on his shoulders, me on top of Orlando, and did a big F5, the FU finish. And I remember it's the only time I think I ever turned a spot down because I knew I'd get hurt. I'd been hurt so many times. I thought, if I do this, I'm not going to be able to get up, because that was not the finish of something else I was going to. I thought, I won't be able to do the finish. And I thought, I'll get hurt. And I felt horrible about it. I remember thinking at that point that, you know, if I can't do that, I need to get out of here. And that's when I first started thinking that, you know, this is something that age has caught up to me and injuries have caught up to me.
Triple H would note that it's tough to give up, and this business is really tough to give up. The spotlight is bright, and that's the fanfare. And I mean, I get it, you know, and I think even Ric Flair has talked about this. You know, his planned retirement, you know, he immediately flew down to the Caribbean, and he woke up the next day and he couldn't really wrap his head around, wait, I'm never going to wrestle again? Like, that's just something in the rearview mirror. He really had a hard time with that. And I wondered, you know, if at any time, because I know you've been flirting with the idea recently, but prior to, we'll call it the last 18 months or so, had there been other times where you got the itch and you thought, maybe I'm going to make one more run at this?
Yeah, there had been a couple times. There was a time with Heath Slater. We were doing the JBL and Cole show, and he was at my nephew Clem, and that was a funny little thing that he did. And I wanted to do a spot where I came back in tag team with Heath, and he was going to be my nephew, but it was going to be like, the whole gimmick was I was going to say, listen, I'm not your uncle, but I wish I was. And that was going to be like this good feel-good moment, and I was going to come back and tag with Heath. And I talked to Vince about it. He really thought about it hard, and he almost did it. I was hoping that he would. Because the first thing he said was interesting, and I could tell that he wasn't shooting it down, but he ended up killing it. And you know, I kind of wish we had done it, because I like Heath so much. But yeah, there was a couple times where I thought about different times. Man, I'd really like to come back.
Hypothetically, after the success of the initial All In pay-per-view, before AEW was even created, didn't you flirt with an idea there too? Sure
did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure did. And I had a scheduled match for TNA for this past summer. You know, I've told the story. You know, the guy that was in the creative at the time, we had a disagreement about what he wanted, and I didn't think it made sense. And so I walked, and wasn't Tommy, and it wasn't Carlos, either one. Both, I love those two guys. And I've talked to him about doing something, you know, in the future, and we still might. So yeah, there was some times where I flirted with different stuff, and I flirted different stuff during the time when that AEW All In came in. I flirted with just some different stuff about doing some things with, you know, some of the guys that were putting a lot of stuff together. It never worked out, because they kind of went on with Tony Khan and did some stuff and you know, went a different direction. But yeah, I flirted off and on over the last, I don't know, 10, 12 years of doing something that just for one reason or another has never materialized.
The hypothetical story that you pitched to me years ago in 2018 about you and Cody.
Yeah,
with you, that would have been really fun, man. I would have.
It would have been a lot of fun, and I wanted to do it, and I think Cody wanted to do it, and I really like Cody, and I like the association. You know, obviously with Dusty, and you know, my association with Dusty through Dick Murdoch, who I tagged with, and you know, Murdoch and he were a great tag team back in the '70s. Dusty, and yeah, I had some ideas that, you know, I thought could have worked, and you know, Cody went on. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what happened. Cody went on a different, you know, place, and of course he comes. He's the biggest name in wrestling, so he obviously made the right decision. But it'd been fun to have done something. I really liked Cody. I loved Cody working with him on the JBL and Cole show. We were always nemesis on the little show that we did. And we always had so much fun just doing stuff. He's a really smart, creative guy. A lot of those, we had Bad News Barrett on there. I mean, we had a lot of fun. Daniel Bryan was on there. Kane was on there. We had guys, wanting to be on that JBL and Cole show because it was so much fun.
I do want to ask you, the world has changed quite a bit from 2009 to now. And now there's been advancements in medicine and nutrition and technology. Do you think if you had the same back challenges that you had in 2009, now today in 2025, would you have been able to extend your career?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. I didn't know what to do with it, and I just kind of gave up. I just thought it was my time to quit. And as crazy as it sounds, 42 was old then.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't very long ago. You're talking about 16 years ago. It was old. I was one of the older champions when I was champion, and people would make jokes about it. I would too, but that was what it was back then. Now Brock and Cena are look like they're at the top of their game, and they're much older than I was when I got out of the game. The world has changed. AJ Styles, at the top of his game, much older than I was when I got out of the game. The world has changed. Look at all these luchadors. None of them are very young. Flammer is the one women's champion, but most of them are in their 40s.
I mean, not to state the obvious. Cody's 40.
Right.
The idea that he's going to be retired in 2 years is like, wait, what?
Right. He's at absolutely the top of his game. He's like, oh, he's got years and years left. When I was 40, and this is crazy because it's only 18 years ago when I was 40. People were all, well, you don't have long left. And I knew I didn't, that was the assumption. And I guess it's just a matter of diet and better training and all of the sports stuff that they have. It's just a different world now. I mean, look at the pictures of, they always put up on the internet, say B. Arthur and J-Lo at the same age of 54. B looks like her grandmother at that age. J-Lo looks like she's 32. People are just aging differently now.
I do want to ask, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but we just saw yesterday, Ricky Morton celebrated turning 69 years old. Shout out to Ricky at 69, still wrestling. He wrestled over the weekend for Juggalo Championship Wrestling, our buddies at the Insane Clown Posse. And man, their title belt took up his entire torso. So he's still having fun, making towns at 69. Is there some sort of, boy, this sounds like I'm talking to a lady, but it is like there a biological clock ticking in your head where you feel like, hey man, if I don't do it by so-and-so, oh, there you go. Woo, woo.
I got tons of merch from the Insane Clown Posse. I love those guys.
Do you feel any sort of pressure age-wise? Like, hey, if I don't come back, because we know, you said you had something planned in TNA, it didn't shake out. You thought about ideas here and there, and we've even seen some of your training videos, some of it tongue-in-cheek where you're throwing things at leprechaun dolls, but whatever. Is there a goal in mind where, hey, I want to have a meaningful story. I want to have some fun. I realize that's what your angle is on this, but have you put any sort of parameters or any sort of internal deadlines, like I need to do it by X, or do you not operate your life that way?
I don't, yes and no. Satchel Paige has the greatest quote ever. I was joking with Edge about it a while back. How old are you if you don't know how old you are? If you really don't know how old you are, Satchel was, didn't know his exact age. Greatest pitcher of all time. That's my favorite ball player of all time. But if you don't know how old you are, how old are you? It's all a mindset, and it sounds bad. When you turn, say, 60 or whatever it is, I mean, it sounds very old. I'm going to be 60 in just about a year and a couple months, be 59 in November. Yeah, I think there's a time I think there is. I don't know for sure. I think if I'm going to do something, I need to do it before I'm 60, not because of physical reasons. I'm not deteriorating as far as, my health. As long as I work out, I can get in pretty good shape still. I think just 60 sounds old. Now, when I'm 60, I may say, oh, I got till I'm 61 or 62. But I think if I do something, it would need to be the next, year and a half or so to at least get my name back out there. If I was going to do something, and I don't have any plans right now to do that. So it's all, just kind of armchair quarterbacking. But I thought if something's going to be done, it needs to be done, in the next year.
Well, I got my fingers crossed. I'm looking forward to seeing you do your thing. And I wonder.
Hey, and by the way, I am getting training advice. I've been on the road for a few weeks, hadn't been in the gym, but I'm getting training advice from my two coaches, who are the most smart-ass coaches in the world, Gerald Briscoe and Jody Malenko. So they are giving me they are. I've got a suplex dummy all set up in my garage. I'm doing stuff. I'm doing some training, but I have the most smart-ass coaches in the world, and Jody Malenko and Gerald Briscoe. They pretty much just bash me consistently when I send them stuff.
Hypothetically, is the suplex dummy's name Bruce?
It is named Bruce. Yes, it is. Yeah, yes, it is. I'll post a picture of it. It's named Bruce. Mr. Briscoe named it Bruce.
I love that.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't think you got a chance to see it over the weekend, but AEW presented a pay-per-view from Toronto, All Out, and that show started with the reuniting tag team. We used to know them as Edge and Christian in WWE. Now they're Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, and they got the band back together to take on another former WWF tag team, FTR. We do them as the Revival here in WWE land, but that show was a fun show because it was sort of a homecoming for the real life Adam Copeland and the real life Christian Cage. I don't guess they'd ever tagged on a pay-per-view in Canada before, so it was a big deal. Beth Phoenix got involved, really fun exchange, but what got everybody's attention was Adam Copeland sort of returning the favor. We've talked about it here in recent weeks where we would see John Cena pay homage to some of his more famous opponents when he would do some of their moves in the confines of his match. And Edge did exactly that. The former Edge did exactly that. He hit the old 5-knuckle shuffle. He did the "you can't see me." He did the FU. The entire crowd at an AEW show was chanting for John Cena. And I realized that when you get online, sometimes there's like this territorial conversation and people are very, I don't know, silly with some of their arguments. It becomes tribalistic. But that is more proof to me that that is really the minority, because everyone was excited to celebrate John Cena, knowing he's not in Toronto. He's clearly in Indianapolis on the other show. But the mutual respect between the real life Adam and the real life John, because John, that night after his match with Brock Lesnar, posted a picture of Edge on his Instagram. I just love seeing this mutual respect. And I know that maybe the powers that be on either channel might not totally love it, but how cool is this to see guys just share it across party lines?
I'm sure they don't love it. I'm sure. And if I was there, if I was in charge, I probably wouldn't love it too, but I would understand it. I think it's awesome. I love Edge. Him and Christian, me and Ron worked with those guys so many times. Just fantastic human beings. I was there when Edge got inducted in the Waterloo, Iowa Hall of Fame, and Ron Hutchinson did such a wonderful job inducting him. And of course, Edge did an incredible job with his speech, as you would expect. But it's just cool to see this. And you're right about the fans. The fans just like guys who entertain them, or girls that entertain them. And so when you sit there and show this for John Cena, the fans go nuts about it because it gets them in the ring with you. It allows them to be part of the business. Like, yeah, he's our guy too. And I think it's just fun. And I think for the most part, we hear from the minority of fans. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's negative. I get all that. They have a right to say whatever they want. But the majority of fans are out there just want to go to the show. The majority of the fans are like me when I'm watching whatever I'm watching, the Tulsa King. I don't want to know what's behind it. When I saw Cash Flow up in Louisville, I didn't ask him what the storylines were. I just said, hey, congratulations. I can't wait to see you on there because I just want to see it. I just want to be entertained. And I think that's how most fans are, which is pretty cool.
It is super cool. And I was thankful to get to see it. I know that the tribalism is real online, but I don't think it is with the boys, and that you don't need to look further than that moment to be like, oh, you know what? These are real guys who just have a lot of mutual respect.
Yeah. Conrad, we used to have, we were in Philadelphia. We also met up with the WCW guys. For whatever reason, that was more there than anywhere else. I don't know why, but we meet up there and be at the Philadelphia Hilton or at the airport Marriott, or mainly usually the Hilton there by the airport was where we'd meet up. We're friends with all those guys. We're at war with those guys as far as our companies, but there's no animosity between the guys. We want to win because we want jobs. We don't know if the other side's going to hire us. So we are competing with those guys, but it's nothing personal at all. You know, we'd go and we'd see the guys, and it was so good to see them. It was so good to talk to them. And, you know, they're just they're just working, going through life like we are. We're going down the same road. You know, we work for different people, and it's cool to be able to see that and be able to do that. And that's what I think you're seeing with Edge and John. And that's what's so great about this business.
Hey, I do want to ask you, you know, we're rounding the bases. December 13th will be here before you know it. We know it's not going to be on NBC, but it is going to be a Saturday night's main event. And I imagine that somebody on this broadcast right now might be front row for that. You don't live too terribly far from Washington, D.C. Are you going to be at that event?
If I'm invited, I would be my honor to go. I was there, you know, obviously when John got his first title, and I was very happy for him then and very happy for him now. Every time I hear his voiceover on TV, I'm very happy for him. John is a terrific person, and he is a great representative of our business. He's a great representative of any business there is. He's one of the most respectful guys that you cannot believe how nice and respectful John Cena is in person, to everybody that he runs into. It's not a work. It's everybody he runs into. So yes, if I'm invited, I'll be there in a heartbeat. If I'm not, I'll be watching it somewhere on streaming or on TV.
Well, I know a place you can watch it. Thanks to our friends at ExpressVPN. You know, going online without ExpressVPN is kind of like driving without car insurance. I mean, hey, you might be a great driver, but with all the crazy people on the road these days, why would you take that risk? And that's why everyone needs a VPN. You see, every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, etc., your online data, buddy, it's not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your personal data. And I'm talking about stuff like your credit card details, your passwords, your bank logins. And it doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone in 2025. You just get some cheap hardware. That's all you need. Even a 12-year-old could do it. And your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person just selling your personal information on the dark web. Yeah, ExpressVPN will help you stop hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. It's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's also very easy to use. You fire up the app and click one button and bam, you're protected. It also works on all devices, your phones, your laptops, your tablets, and more, and you can stay secure on the go. There's an optional dedicated IP service engineered with innovative zero-knowledge design. Not even ExpressVPN can trace an IP address back to the user. And for U.S. customers only, select plans include Identity Defender, a new suite of tools to get your data removed from data brokers, alert you when your data appears on the dark web, and even insure you against data theft for up to $1 million. If you're curious, ExpressVPN has been rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. I'm a big believer in this. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with someone who was applying for a home loan with my real job and my real life. I'm not just Conrad, the mortgage guy, by accident. I've been doing it since 2001. And I routinely sit with people whose identities have been stolen. And some of that could have happened because they were not using a VPN. I'm a big believer in this. And let me just say, it would make some of your woes watching wrestling a little easier. Go secure your data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wrestle. That's expressvpn.com/wrestle. That's expressvpn.com/wrestle to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months. That's expressvpn.com/wrestle. Hey, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a little bit of a dust up that happened today on social media. I want to get your take on. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a clip that went kind of viral of a death match moment. And I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I had Silva prepare it. So we'll go ahead and show you that clip now. And then I want to show you the fallout because there was not only the battle here. Oh, take a look at this. Off the top of some scaffold through a pane of glass, and it looks like they fell onto barbed wire netting and bounced back into the barbed wire. How many bumps like that have you taken in your illustrious?
Zero. I was actually thinking about taking a bump off the top of a cage one time, but it never worked out.
Wait. You were going to take a bump off a cage?
Yeah, if I was going to have a Hell in a Cell match, I wanted to take a big boot off the thing and take a bump to the table. But the Hell in a Cell, I forget what it was when I was working on like 0405. The Hell in a Cell never worked out, but I was going to take I want to take the bump off of it. I thought it'd be cool. Probably would have been the dumbest thing I ever did, but yeah, I was debating that.
Now, just so I'm clear, you're saying you wanted to take
the Foley bump, the
Mick Foley Shane McMahon bump, not like Rikishi did into a bed of sawdust,
right?
The Shane McMahon Mick Foley through a table bump.
Yeah, but the match never worked out, so I never even pitched it. I don't know if I pitched it to Vince or not, taking the bump. I don't know if he would have let me do it or not. I have no idea, but that was my thought. But yeah, that was definitely a thought that I wanted. I took a German one time off from Benoit off the top rope, knocked me completely out.
And that was so fun. You thought, shit, let's do it on the top.
That's right. Yeah, I left my car in the airport and flew back with Vince. Forgot I even had to rent a car. I gave my hotel room because Randy had just come in the company, Randy Orton, and I said, "Hey, I've got a hotel room here. I think we're in Buffalo." And I said, "I got a hotel room. I hadn't used it yet because Vince said, you want to fly back with me?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll fly with you." But I had a room. And so I hadn't even been in it yet. When I got the key and I gave it to Randy because he'd just come in the company to use because it was paid for already. And I, couldn't get the money back, but I left the car in the right by the building. I got all the way back to New York. 2 days later, National calls me and goes, "Hey, we found your car wrecked. Somebody had hit it while it was in the parking lot." And that was the first I remembered I had a car. I didn't remember I go, "Oh my God, I had a rental car." And so I picked it up. Cost me a fortune having to pay for that damn car.
Dude, that's scary.
Yeah, I took the bump off the cage. I you know how they tease that German off the top rope? And I told Chris, I said, "Just give it to me." And I asked Chris, I said, "Can you land me flat?" And he goes, "Promise you I can." And he did. The bump was just too big and knocked me out. And I think it was Nick Patrick. And he goes, when I hit, he didn't, I was still, my eyes were open. I wasn't, like out, snoring or something, like some guys do when they get knocked out. My eyes were still open. Nick said, "Do you have any idea the finish?" And I said, "Don't know where I am." And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to call it to you." And so Nick Patrick, I believe, was the referee. He was the one that called the entire finish to me, told me what to do and because I didn't know where I was, nothing.
My gosh. So listen, the bump, I hate we're getting sidetracked here, but I got to follow up on this. When we saw Shane McMahon take the bump off the Hell in a Cell through the table, no disrespect to Shane, took a ton of balls. There was a crash pad under the table so we got better with protecting folks. The timeline where you were thinking you were going to do this, you're just going to go fly through it like a hot knife through butter like Foley did, or had they already done the crash pad?
I don't remember if they did the crash pad by that point or not. They probably had the crash pad by then. I feel like they did because, when Mick did it, they didn't have nothing. I mean, right. Mick just went to a table. Mick's buddy. Mick's a tough dude. So I don't remember if they had the crash pad then or not. Hey, let me tell you a funny story. We're in a WrestleMania one year, and I got the German announcers next to us, and I know somebody's coming off the cage. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, Bobby Lashley. I think it's Bobby Lashley was in the ring, and I know somebody's coming off the cage or something to our table, and so I had a drink with me. It was a can. And I turned to the German announcer. I took, I think it's Klaus, I think it was. I said, "Hey, put this underneath the cow," because I didn't want them to hit the can and hurt themselves, with that, coming down on top of that can. And so when I did, I didn't know somebody was coming through the cage. I didn't know the cage door, the whole thing was coming out. I had no idea that was being done. So I give them that can. They put it there underneath the cow, and it's not 30 seconds later, Bobby, I think it was, came crashing through the cage. The whole door comes down, hits their table, and hits that drink and just spews all over. And they're in their tuxedos, and they're soaking wet now with all this monster energy drink. And we're so bad they couldn't hardly do it on camera. They're like, "Oh yeah, JBL ribbed us." They had JBL. They were so mad at me. I apologize forever. I'm going, guys, I promise I didn't do that on purpose. I really didn't, but they never believe me.
So let's get thank you for sharing that. I just can't shake the idea of you taking a bump off the
Yeah, I think it was something with Taker if we're going to do a Hell in a Cell. I think it was, but I don't remember if the Hell in a Cell was even pitched or not. I just remember thinking that was the bump I wanted to take, and I think they were talking about doing a Hell in a Cell, and it never worked out. But yes, that was in my head that I wanted to do that. Yes.
I mean, when I've watched it back, the Foley bump we're talking about, man, if he misses if he moves a little bit, he hits his head on the guardrail, he's dead.
It's so dangerous.
Direction, he hits the monitor, and those big blocks were just indestructible. I mean, Brett tried to tear them up the year before, and they're just indestructible. They're made to be thrown around in road cases and things like that. So just the idea that you might fall directly on that on your back or your head hit the guardrail, you're a good deal taller than Foley. If your head would have hit the guardrail, I mean, dude, if you're not dead, you got a new fancy set of wheels to move around in. There's no coming back from that, dude.
Yeah, I took a backdrop, I think it was when I was going from Cena from one table to another. I think it was Cena, and I hit the table's edge. I didn't get clear enough. You got to push your hands off really far, and I didn't, and I hit the edge. Bro, everything in my lower body went numb from hitting that edge. I was fine, but I got a pretty good stinger from it. So yeah, Vince may not have allowed me to do it, but that was certainly something that I was going to pitch.
When you get a stinger like that and you can't feel your lower extremities and you're live on television, what goes through your mind?
When you first have it, I remember when a young guy got hurt one time, and I asked Bruce, I said, what happened? Bruce said he'd never been hurt before. When you first have it, you think you're paralyzed. I mean, you think, oh my God, I've done something horrible to my body. After you've had a few stingers, I know it sounds bad, but you realize it's probably not that big a deal. It's probably just a stinger. Even though there's a shots of electricity going through your extremities, you don't feel things. You pretty much know that it's going to be a passing thing. And for me, it always was. So it was always a matter of me just kind of figuring out what I was going to do in the meantime. When Eddie hit me with the splash off the top of the cage, I remember I told the ref, don't let him cover me, because I couldn't feel one half my body. And I thought if he covers me on that side, I won't be able to kick out. And we had to go to the finish where Kurt Angle came in and came up the cage. And I couldn't feel one side of my body. And I had him give me some time, but let the feeling come back.
Well, let's get back on our topic here. This crazy bump went kind of viral over the weekend, jumping off of a scaffold, through some panes of glass, bouncing off the barbed wire, and everybody had an opinion about this. Of course, there is a large contingent of fans online who really enjoy and see the value in deathmatch wrestling, and it feels like there's just as many, perhaps more, who were totally opposed. One of those is Gail Kim, who quote tweeted this and said, "This is pure trash. Say you don't know how to storytell without saying it." And I think Brett Lauderdale, the owner and promoter of GCW, he took that personally. And he said this scene is part of a documentary produced by A24 telling the stories of little-known deathmatch fighters from around the world. It will premiere at prestigious film festivals around the world. Bookmark this. Now, I dare anyone to name one memorable Gail Kim match. Now, that to me felt a little bit like a low blow and kind of out of left field for Brett. But Gail, she had time today, so she responded. And she said, okay, Brett, let's have a match, and I'll show you memorable. I'll get into my list of my other ones. Where do you land on deathmatch wrestling? We've never really spent time talking about it. I know how much you look up to Terry Funk and admire his body of work and what an incredible performer he was. I mean, I don't think when you see the spinning toe hold from the 60s and 70s, you could have imagined what he'd be doing in Japan in the 90s, but he did it. Where do you land on deathmatch wrestling?
Well, look, I understand where Gail's coming from. I love Gail, and she's a Hall of Famer. So I think Brett is sticking up for his company and misguided by saying that. And I like Brett. I like Gail. I can see where you get a little cross sometimes on social media. Those things happen where you start spewing a little venom on each other. I don't have a problem with it. It's not. I don't want to do it. I have no desire to do it. Not because I'd rather tell stories without it. I think it's harder to tell stories without it. It's harder to do promos without cursing. it's harder to do promos without making, the flipping people off and doing stuff. You got to be creative, and I'd rather do it without it. But I was there when Onita and those guys were doing all this crazy deathmatch stuff in the early 90s. They were drawing huge crowds in Japan, and this spot here, I get it. That's not for me. It's pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool what they did. It's they're trying to make a name for themselves, and they're working extremely hard. Is it misguided? I think some of it is. Yes, I don't know how. Maybe a lot of it is. I don't know. But you do a spot like that. I mean, it actually looked like it wasn't that unsafe. You go through the glass shatters, and we use a lot of breakaway glass. I don't know what they use. I assume that's what it is. And you land on something that's probably going to protect your fall. I don't have a big issue with it. I think those guys are working hard trying to make a living just like everybody else is.
Well, I'll be honest. When you see a guy like that fly through glass and land in barbed wire, it almost feels like, hey, am I watching wrestling or is this a crime scene? When I think of crime, I think of the Legal Buddy app. Life happens fast. One minute you're driving home after work. The next you see flashing lights in your rearview mirror. Your heart skips. Your hands tighten on the wheel. And you start asking yourself, what do I do now? That's when you need someone on your side. And with the Legal Buddy app, you can connect with a local attorney in seconds, not hours, not days, but right when you need help. Whether it's a DWI, a car accident, a criminal charge, or even just a traffic ticket, the Legal Buddy app puts real legal support right in your pocket. Imagine having an attorney on call, ready to guide you through some of life's most stressful moments. This is not a call center. This isn't a waiting game. It's direct access to a lawyer who understands your situation and your community, and one who can step in right away. Think about it. When trouble knocks, do you want to face it alone, or would you rather have the confidence of knowing a professional is already on your side? That's the peace of mind that Legal Buddy gives you. And here's how easy it is. Just go download the Legal Buddy app right now at legalbuddyapp.com. That's legalbuddyapp.com. Register today and use the referral code LEGAL, and you'll automatically be entered for your chance to win a $250 gift card. Life is unpredictable. Accidents happen. Tickets happen. Mistakes happen. But when they do, you don't have to go through it alone. The Legal Buddy app, always on your side. Download the app today and enter the referral code LEGAL. So, John, we're live right now on YouTube, right around the same time that Monday Night Raw is starting on Netflix. So we'll start winding down. If you've got a question for John, hit us up. We're home stretching it here. Acel Raider says, if you could have been another character from your era, what would you choose? Also, did you have any say in the JBL intro music? Let's go backwards first. Did you get to approve your music? Are you consulted for your music? How does that happen? Or you just come out one day and say, well, shit, there it is.
Good Lord, no. I have no idea how to put music together. I can barely play a jukebox. Not that anybody plays jukeboxes anymore. But no, they played it for me, and I thought it was fantastic. Those guys did such a great job. I don't know if it's Jim Johnston or who it was that did it. I don't know who did my music. I think he did my original music. But it was great. So no, it was a matter of, hey, here's your music. And I heard it. I thought, that's fantastic. It was fantastic because Vince was in charge of it. He wasn't doing the music, but Vince took a personal interest in it. And he really wanted this to work. And so the music I thought was just fantastic. So I didn't have any say in it, but I did hear it before I went out, and I thought it was great. And as far as an era of what would I choose? The only gimmick that I really ever saw that I thought I want to be a part of that is the West Texas Rednecks with Rap is Crap. I thought that was the greatest thing that was ever created. So when I saw Wyndham and Kurt and all those guys up there doing that, and Bobby, I thought, oh my God, I want to switch companies right now and go be the fifth member of that band.
What do you think? Who is your favorite rapper?
Rapper?
Yeah. I mean, you got a favorite rapper, I'm sure.
Well, the only rap I really listened to was like Run DMC when I was a kid. So I've never really been like a rap guy. I like the LL Cool J because I've met him. Some like does that. I like the guys I've met. I'm very limited music. I like old rock and roll and country. So I'm not. Yeah, but I like all music. If it's rap music, look, I worked with kids, that with my rugby programs, that's all they listen to is rap. And so I let them listen to whatever they want. I never cared. I just told them, I said, listen, don't have a bunch of F-bombs and don't have a bunch of homophobic slurs or anything. And you can listen to whatever you want. And that was the only parameters I put on. I didn't care what they listened to. And I enjoyed their music.
What hypothetically, what is on JBL's iPod? Like what songs do you have downloaded on your machine?
Oh, it's nearly all country music. There's a little bit of rock and roll. I love AC/DC. Sarge used to listen to AC/DC on every single flight. I would watch him. When we first got like video, he'd watch their concerts. He's apparently a huge AC/DC fan. I never even asked him about it. I just remember seeing him, on the planes. But I loved AC/DC. I thought they were just the bomb. I loved Meatloaf. I thought he's a great singer. When he did the national anthem that one time, it was just, oh my God, it's like freaking Whitney Houston. I thought it was so good. Not as good as Whitney, but pretty freaking good. But mainly just a lot of country, some old country, some new country, but a lot of rock too. I just like music. I really don't care. If it's good music, I'll listen to it.
Rattle me off a handful of country acts you enjoy.
I like the old guys. I went to see George Jones in Carnegie Hall up in him and Chris Christopherson. I got to see those guys. See Merle Haggard one time in Tyler, Texas. So I love the old country acts. But I like who's the current. I'd have to look on my iPad and see. But I love a lot of the current acts.
Morgan Wallen's the big one, right?
Morgan Wallen is good. He's got a great voice. Darius Rucker, what a freaking voice that guy has.
Yeah,
that guy's different level. He's so freaking good.
And a big wrestling fan.
Yeah, huge wrestling fan. But man, I love hearing that guy sing.
Maddie is with us here live, and he says, "What's one angle or match that you think aged way better than expected?"
Oh, better than expected. The great ones, obviously, but that's
Custody of Dominic comes to mind. Like that at the time, the Custody of Dominic, the ladder match with Eddie and Ray.
Yes.
Like at the time, we were all like, oh, God. Little did we know. Eddie.
Oh, my God. Little we know there'd be a storyline 20 years later, the big hottest thing in wrestling. Yes. That age, that has to be the greatest thing that at the time you're looking at going, I'm not sure if I'm buying this. And then 20 years later, you're going, that's the greatest thing we've ever done.
Because, just if you take a look at like early Eddie Guerrero and you look at Dominic Mysterio now with the mustache and the mullet, it's like, wow. I'm not saying, but I'm saying. Maddie is with us here live, and he wants to know if the APA had to protect one modern wrestler, who would get the gig? That's kind of fun.
Yeah, I always thought we'd be good with Miz. He's not necessarily, a great, not a great, he's not necessarily doing a lot these days, but when Miz was, on top, I always thought Miz would be a perfect guy for APA. So Conrad, I've got you a little bit of an answer here. Eric Church, Dylan Scott, Old Dominion, Jelly Roll, Shabuzi, Marshmallow and Kane Brown, Jason Aldean, and then some old stuff, Chase Rice and some Blake Shelton and some older guys. So that's some of the stuff off the iPod. I don't have iPods anymore off your phone.
Yeah, iPhone, but it's easy to say.
Yeah.
2x6 Derek is with us here live, and he says JBL looking like he can show up at the Royal Rumble and throw a few clotheslines from hell. It would be epic. Also, how have you not torn your rotator cuff? You had to tear your rotator cuff, didn't you?
I have. I've had this one. I've torn my bicep on my left arm though. I tore the bicep on this side, and I tore the bicep up here, and I've had the rotator cuff torn up here. The rotator cuff here is kind of gone. I have to have surgery on it someday, but not yet. So the clothesline, the money arm, I haven't had surgery on yet. The other one my left one, I've had, oh my goodness, 3 surgeries.
Hey, I know this is dumb, and I'm dumb. I'm trying to learn. Help me out here. I've always been under the impression that in America, guys always work on the left. In Japan, they work on the right. Is that right?
No, Japan's left as well. It's Mexico.
Mexico is right. Okay.
Mexico, yeah.
And so I guess I was wondering, does that matter at all when you're trying to figure out which arm you're going to throw the lariat with? Or is it just based on, hey, I'm right-handed, I'm going to throw it with the right?
Nope, it's just based on which you can do it. Because Stan was left-handed. Stan did it left. Stan's, I believe, is right-handed, but he used the left arm. There's a couple pictures of Stan where he's posing with the lariat with his right arm. He's sitting there, that steer and stuff, but he always threw it left. It was not, even though his publicity photos for some reason are always done with his right, but he always threw it with his left. But it was just a matter of which one you could do it better with.
Did you ever throw it with the other arm, or was it always with the
I tried.
right?
I couldn't do it. I wasn't any good. We're not ambidextrous enough to do it. It was such a wild motion that I came through with it that the left arm, I just wasn't as ambidextrous enough to do it.
So if for some reason you did have a debilitating injury to the right, but you didn't want to come off the road, would you have tried to use a different finish, or would you have tried to just, make chicken salad out of the chicken shit left?
I'd have tried to make a different finish, no doubt about it, because I thought I tore it at one point, and I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna have to have a different finish, because the clothesline I had was so unique that I didn't want to water it down and people remember what it was before.
Yes.
And say, oh my God, that's half of what it was before. So I would have just used a different finish.
So when you tried it with the left, was that always on house shows? I mean, that was never on TV.
Absolutely. I tried a lot of stuff on house shows. We all did, to see if something worked, to see if a finish was be better with something. Tried a lot of stuff on house shows, and one of them was throwing a clothesline left arm in it. I just wasn't very good at it.
So if you would have had to use a different finish, I'm sure you at least had a few moves in mind. Hey, maybe this, maybe that. What would have been a backup for a lariat?
I used the power bomb when I was younger, but then of course I got there and freaking Sid looked like he walked off a freaking marble, staircase of statue, and it was using a power bomb. So obviously I couldn't have done that. I had a finish. I used one match was against Vader where I crossed the arms and flipped them around and did like a neck breaker, because I wanted to use something I could use on anybody, because the report was that I'd hurt somebody with a clothesline, which I don't think was true. But Bruce pulled me aside and said, hey, you've got to do a different finish. And so came up with that finish for that match. And after it, I just went back to using the old finish. I thought they're going to have to get rid of me, or, whatever's I'm not going to change my finish.
Well, something we hope to change for you is saving people money right now at savewithconrad.com. If you haven't already, I want to encourage you to go check me out. Listen, I've been doing this for a long time, and don't get me wrong, I love talking about old wrestling, but my true passion and the reason I started doing these podcasts was to spread the word of the great work we do with my team at savewithconrad.com. Someone asked me the other day, hey, how long have you been doing mortgages? And I had to think for a minute. Since the invasion angle, August of 2001. Now, thankfully, mortgages worked out better for me than maybe that angle did. But man, we'd be glad to help you save some cash right now. And I'm talking to you if you've decided that, hey, you can't afford a house, or maybe you're just struggling paying your bills right now. If you're already in a home right now, I want you to know, if you've got credit card debt or you're in a 30-year loan, it's not a matter of if I can help you save money, but a matter of how much. I'm routinely helping our podcast listeners combine all of their other debt and reduce their term. Let's say you're 3 years into a 30-year loan. What if I could cut 7 years off of your loan, show you how to pay your house off 7 years faster? That's 84 payments that if you don't call right now, you'll just continue to make that check out every single month, your single biggest bill, and just give it to the bank. Don't do that. Keep more of your own money and go right now to savewithconrad.com. And I know what you're thinking. Hey, I looked at a 15-year mortgage before. I can't afford it. The payment goes up. Aha, maybe not. Let's take a look at your total household budget. How much are you spending on these other bills? I'm talking about your credit cards. Are you feeling stuck making minimum payments? More families than ever before are carrying credit card debt. And a lot of people feel like they have golden handcuffs right now. They tell me, well, it doesn't make sense for me to refinance. I've got a great rate. I don't want to lose my great rate. Well, it sounds like you're rate conscious, but I want to challenge you with this. Are you really, if you've maxed out a credit card, what's your rate on that? 18%, 28%? I saw one last week at 34%. You know you can do better than that. Not only is it sky high, it's also not tax deductible, where the interest you pay on your house is tax deductible. I'm of the belief that once you owe the debt, it's up to you how to figure out how to pay it back. Wouldn't it make sense to get the best rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? But more importantly, think about the end of your loan. Here's what I mean. We've all heard people in our day-to-day life say, oh, I got 3 more car payments and then this thing's paid off. Why don't we talk about our houses the same way? It's your single biggest bill. You may not even know this, but the word mortgage is actually Latin for pledge until death. It's designed to give bankers 29% of your gross monthly income until you die. I'm not one of those bankers. At SaveWithConrad.com, we want you to own your house free and clear. We believe the best mortgage is no mortgage. Let's get a plan to get there. That's all you really need. You see, with us, we don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. You need a plan. Maybe you'd like to upgrade your house, get a nicer bathroom, get a nicer kitchen, put in a pool in the backyard. Maybe you want to pay your house off before your kids go to college so they don't get saddled with student loans. Maybe you'd like to retire on time. I want you to really ask yourself, how old will you be when you pay your house off? If you don't know the answer, spend 10 minutes with us. That's all it's going to cost. It's no cost, no obligation. And if we can't save you some cash, we won't waste your time. But that's the worst case scenario. You spend 10 minutes with us and I say, you know what, dude, you got a pretty good deal. Keep doing what you're doing. But what if I could save you $1,000 a month? I'm routinely helping our podcast listeners do that. Now, once you save that $1,000 a month, imagine if you applied it to your principal. How much faster would you pay your house off? Let's get out of debt together at SaveWithConrad.com. And again, did I mention this? No house payments for 2 months. It's your single biggest bill, and you won't have to make that payment in October or November. And come December 1st, no more credit card debt and a cheaper monthly payment just in time for the holidays. Get ahead of this right now at SaveWithConrad.com. Email me directly at Conrad@SaveWithConrad.com or call us toll free at 888-425-0105. NMLS number 2129, SaveWithConrad.com. John, we went long in the tooth today, but this was a blast, man. I loved having a special guest run in. I feel like we cleared up all the rumor and innuendo. We heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Shout out again to David Otunga for being the guy to set the record straight, maybe the most uniquely qualified guy to talk about the law and pro wrestling, and we thank him for all the time today. And I had a blast just talking about the state of the wrestling business today with you, John.
Yeah, I did too, as always, Conrad. You're a really smart guy, and I really enjoy it. You enjoy our pre-production meetings also with our stud muffin. It's a bunch of stuff we probably can't repeat, but it certainly is a lot of fun. And, you know, David, what an incredible court case this is going to be if this thing goes to trial. I mean, you got to debate about what's a work, what's not, what's a shoot and what's not. And you got to explain what a work means to a bunch of jurors and a shoot means a bunch of – I mean, this is going to be nuts if this thing ends up in trial.
It is going to be nuts. And I'll tell you, America is nuts right now. I just want to say, hey, be the light. Let's be positive. Let's try to – if you're thinking you got to be negative on social media, maybe log off and see how you
right.
do tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's such a crazy echo chamber going on social media right now, John. It's just not a lot of fun. So I appreciate that we got to be the escape today.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being something positive. You know, people don't think it's cool, but so what, man? I mean, you can be the guy that you walk into a room and everybody goes, oh, man, here comes the guy that's going to bring everything down. It's like some guys you walk in a room, it's like turning the sprinklers on indoors. You know, it's like Pigpen walking in from the old Charles Schultz cartoon. You know, don't be that guy. Be somebody that actually does something positive in this world.
And somebody else who's doing something positive is Mr. Briscoe. Be sure to catch John each and every week on his other podcast while he's keeping Bruce's chair warm, because, yes, Bruce is coming back. And if you're curious, yes, John and I are going to develop another show. Stay tuned. In the coming weeks, we'll tell you where to go hit the subscribe button. And we may even have some new merch I've got to get John to approve. But in the meantime, go check out Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere you enjoy pods. And we'll see you next week right here on Something to Wrestle with John Layfield.